What happens when saving a stranger's life makes you the target of a war you never knew existed? Dr. Elena Vargas thought the hardest part of her night would be locking up her rural clinic. She was wrong. The man bleeding out on her doorstep, tall, dangerous, and dressed like money, would drag her into a world of violence, lies, and impossible choices. His name is Adrian Vale. He's a criminal, a killer, and the enemies hunting him won't stop until everyone who helped him is dead. Stay until the end, hit that like button, and comment what city you're watching from. I want to see how far this story travels. The first sign of trouble wasn't the blood. It was the silence. Elena Vargas had lived in the valley long enough to know its rhythms, the way crickets filled the gaps between distant coyote calls, how wind shuffled through scrub oak with a sound like whispered warnings. 20 minutes past sunset, the world outside her clinic should have been alive with noise. Instead, nothing. She paused at the supply cabinet, one hand on a bottle of antiseptic she'd been about to inventory. The fluorescent lights overhead hummed their monotonous song, but beneath it, stillness. Wrong stillness. The kind that made the hair on her arms stand up even though she couldn't explain why. Elena crossed to the window and pulled back the thin curtain. Her truck sat alone in the gravel lot, dust still settling from her last house call 3 hours ago. Beyond the fence, darkness pooled thick between the hills. No headlights on the rural route. No movement. She let the curtain fall and shook her head. You're being paranoid. 6 months running this place solo had made her jumpy. Every strange sound became a crisis. Every quiet moment felt like the calm before some disaster. Dr. Marcus Chen, her predecessor, had warned her about the isolation before he'd retired to Phoenix. It gets to you, he'd said, packing the last of his books into a cardboard box. The quiet. You start inventing problems just to have something to focus on. Elena had laughed it off then. She'd wanted quiet. After 4 years at County General, where gunshot wounds and overdoses blurred together into one endless trauma, she'd craved exactly this: space to breathe, patients she could actually help, work that mattered beyond just damage control. She'd gotten her wish. The clinic served a scatter of ranches and small homesteads spread across 50 square miles. Most days she treated infections, stitched up farm injuries, prescribed antibiotics, and occasionally delivered a baby when the hospital in San Ramon was too far. Simple medicine. Clean medicine. The kind where you could see the impact of your work instead of just fighting to keep people alive long enough for someone else to save them. Or fail to save them. Elena pushed the thought away and returned to her inventory. She had another week's worth of supplies, maybe less if the Henderson family came back with another round of strep throat. She made a note to order more amoxicillin, and the pounding hit the front door like a physical blow. Not a knock, not even urgent knocking. This was desperation turned kinetic, fists hammering wood with the kind of force that said life or death. Open now. Please God, open now. Elena's pen clattered to the counter. Her heart kicked against her ribs as the pounding came again. Harder, accompanied by a sound that made her blood freeze. A man's voice. Ragged. Breaking. Please. Please. She was moving before conscious thought caught up, years of emergency room training overriding the voice in her head screaming, "Don't open that door." Her fingers found the deadbolt, twisted it, and yanked the door inward. The man fell into her arms. Not stumbled. Not staggered. Fell. All 6 foot something of him collapsing forward with dead weight that nearly took them both to the floor. Elena caught him on instinct, her shoulders screaming protest as she struggled to control his descent. Her hands found fabric, expensive fabric, she registered dimly, wool or maybe cashmere, and then something warm and wet. Blood. Jesus! She managed to guide him down rather than let him crash, her knees hitting the floor hard as they went. The door swung shut behind them, cutting off the slice of moonlight that had backlit his collapse. He was heavy. Solid muscle under the tailored clothes, the kind of build that spoke of personal trainers and careful nutrition. But right now he was dead weight in her arms, breathing in shallow gasps that whistled between clenched teeth. "Stay with me," Elena commanded, her voice snapping into the clipped, authoritative tone she'd perfected during residency. "Can you hear me? I need you to stay conscious." A groan answered her. His eyes fluttered, dark eyes she saw in the overhead light. nearly black and glazed with pain. They focused on her face for a second, sharpened with something that might have been recognition or relief or just animal awareness that he'd found help. "Shot," he managed. The word came out thick, slurred at the edges. "Left side, through and through, I think. Christ!" Elena was already moving. She shoved away from him, scrambling to her feet and hitting the light's full brightness. The clinic's main room flooded with harsh fluorescence that turned everything clinical and white, including the blood. So much blood. It soaked the left side of his shirt, a spreading crimson stain that had already dripped onto her floor in a pattern that would haunt her later. More blood smeared across his throat where he'd apparently tried to put pressure on the wound with one hand. His right palm was completely red. "Don't move!" Elena grabbed her emergency kit from the cabinet, her hands operating on muscle memory while her brain tried to catch up with what was happening. Gunshot wound. In her clinic. At 8:30 on a Tuesday night. She should call 911. Should call Sheriff Morrison. Should... No hospitals. The man's voice cut through her spiraling thoughts. Stronger now, fueled by adrenaline or sheer will. "No police. Please. They'll kill me." Elena froze with the emergency kit half open. She turned back to look at him, really look at him for the first time. He'd managed to prop himself against the wall, one arm wrapped around his ribs, the other braced on the floor. Blood continued to seep between his fingers, but slower now. Maybe he'd been right about through and through. Maybe he was lucky. Or maybe he was already dying and just didn't know it yet. But it wasn't the wound that stopped her. It was everything else. The clothes first, a black button-down shirt that probably cost more than her monthly rent, tailored to precision before the bullet had ruined it. Dark slacks with a knife-edge crease, Italian leather shoes that had somehow stayed on his feet despite whatever hell he'd run through to get here. A watch on his wrist that caught the light with the subtle gleam of serious money. Then his face, sharp cheekbones and a strong jaw dark with stubble. A scar that cut through his left eyebrow, old and silver. The kind of face that belonged in boardrooms or magazines, not bleeding out on her clinic floor. And his eyes. Despite the pain, despite the blood loss, they were completely focused on her, calculating, aware, dangerous. "Who are you?" Elena heard herself ask. "Adrian?" He coughed, and fresh blood appeared at the corner of his mouth. Internal bleeding. "Fuck. Adrian Vale. And you need to lock that door." "I need to call an ambulance." "Lock the door." Each word came out deliberate, forced through obvious agony. "They followed me. Not close, but close enough. If they find me here..." He didn't finish, didn't need to. The implication hung in the air between them, heavy as the scent of blood. Elena's hands tightened on the emergency kit. Every ounce of her training screamed at her to call for help. Gunshot wounds were serious. This man needed a hospital, needed surgery, needed things she couldn't provide in a rural clinic designed for basic care. But something in his voice, the certainty, the fear underneath the control, made her hesitate. "Who's following you?" she asked. "People you don't want to meet." Adrian tried to shift and immediately regretted it, his face going gray. "Please, lock the door, then we can talk." It was the please that did it. That, and the fact that he was still bleeding, still dying, and she'd already wasted precious seconds standing here when she should be working. Elena crossed to the door and threw the deadbolt. Then the chain. Then she dragged the waiting room chair over and wedged it under the handle. Something she'd seen her father do when they'd lived in a bad neighborhood years ago. "Talk," she said, returning to Adrian with the kit. "While I work." "Who shot you?" "Competitors." He watched her approach with those dark, calculating eyes. Business disagreement that got out of hand. What kind of business involves getting shot? The kind that pays well. A ghost of a smile touched his mouth, gone as quickly as it appeared. "I know how this looks, but I swear to you, I'm not going to hurt you. I just need help. A few hours. Maybe less. Then I'm gone, and you never see me again." Elena knelt beside him and set the kit down. Her hands found scissors and started cutting away his shirt, exposing the wound beneath. Entry wound left side, just below the ribs. She shifted him carefully. He hissed through his teeth but didn't pull away, and found the exit wound on his back. Ragged but clean. He'd been right about through and through, lucky. Incredibly lucky. A few inches higher and the bullet would have shredded his lung. A few inches to the right and it would have hit his liver. As it was, he had tissue damage, probable muscle trauma, and significant blood loss, but nothing immediately fatal. "You need a hospital," Elena said, swabbing away blood to get a better look. "Real surgery, antibiotics, monitoring. I need you." Adrian's hand caught her wrist. Not hard, not threatening, just enough to make her look up. "Please, I can pay. Whatever you want, name it." "I don't want money." "Then what do you want?" Elena stared at him, this bleeding stranger who'd brought violence to her doorstep, and realized she didn't have an answer. What she wanted was for this not to be happening, for her quiet, simple life to stay quiet and simple, for the worst thing she had to deal with tonight to be inventory and paperwork. But that ship had sailed the moment she opened the door. "The truth," she finally said, "if I'm risking my license, risking my life apparently, I want to know why." Adrian held her gaze for a long moment. Then he nodded, just once, and released her wrist. "My name is Adrian Vale," he said again, "and I run an organization that most people would call criminal." The words settled into the quiet like stones dropping into still water. Elena's hands didn't stop working, cleaning the wound, preparing a local anesthetic, laying out the sutures she'd need, but her mind was racing. What kind of organization? The kind that controls certain industries in certain territories. Import, export, protection, information brokerage. Adrian's voice remained steady despite the pain. "I inherited it from my father. Spent the last 8 years building it into something more than just violence and intimidation. Made it efficient, professional, profitable." That's a lot of euphemisms for crime. "It's an honest description of reality." He watched her hands as she worked, his jaw tight. "I'm not going to insult you with justifications. You asked for truth. Truth is, I broke laws, made money, built power, and now some of my competitors have decided they want what I have." Elena soaked a gauze pad with antiseptic. "So they shot you. They tried. This was," he gestured vaguely at the wound, "a parting gift from an ambush that went badly, for them. I lost my security detail but made it out. Drove until I saw your lights. How fortunate for you." "Yes." Adrian's eyes found hers again. "And I know what I'm asking. You saved me. You're complicit. You could lose everything. But I'm asking anyway because I don't have another choice and because I think you're someone who won't let a man bleed out on principle." He was right. Damn him. He was right. Elena uncapped the local anesthetic and filled a syringe. "This is going to hurt. The anesthetic will help, but not completely. I don't have the good stuff here. I've had worse. I doubt that." She injected the anesthetic around the wound in careful increments, watching his face. He barely flinched. Whatever he was, whatever he'd done, the man had pain tolerance that bordered on inhuman. While she waited for the medication to take effect, Elena set up her suture kit. Veterinary-grade supplies, technically. She kept them for the occasional ranch emergency. But they'd work. Everything was sterile. Everything was clean. She could do this. "You know," Adrian said quietly, "you still have time to call the sheriff. Turn me in. I wouldn't blame you." Elena didn't look up from threading the needle. "Would your competitors stop looking for you if I did?" "No." "Would they assume I helped you? That I know things?" A pause, then softer. "Probably." "Then I'm already in this." Elena met his eyes as she positioned the needle. "Whether I want to be or not. So hold still and let me work." She'd sutured hundreds of wounds during her residency. Knife wounds, glass lacerations, surgical incisions that had torn open. The mechanics were familiar. Pierce, loop, pull, tie. Keep the tension even. Make the stitches small and neat to minimize scarring. But she'd never worked in silence quite like this. Adrian didn't speak, didn't move except for the shallow rise and fall of his breathing. His eyes tracked her movements with an intensity that should have made her uncomfortable, but somehow didn't. He was watching her work, she realized, really watching, like he was memorizing every movement, cataloging it for future reference. "You're good at this," he said finally. "I'd better be. I went to medical school for 7 years." "Why here?" Adrian glanced around the modest clinic. "No offense, but someone with your skills could be making real money somewhere else." Elena pulled another stitch tight. I was. County General, Emergency Department. Why'd you leave? Same reason you're bleeding on my floor. She reached for another length of suture thread. Too much violence, too many people I couldn't save. I wanted to help people, not just process them. And this is better? Usually. Elena allowed herself a grim smile. Most days I deal with flu and broken bones. The most exciting it gets is when someone's horse kicks them. This? She gestured at him with the needle. This is not usual. Sorry. Don't apologize yet. Apologize if I have to dig a bullet out of my wall tomorrow. Adrian's laugh was short and pained. Fair. They fell back into silence. Elena worked steadily, closing the entry wound with careful precision. The exit wound would be trickier, it always was, but she'd manage. She had to manage. Because Adrian was right about one thing, she wasn't going to let him die. Not on principle, not because of who he was or what he'd done. In this moment, he was just a patient, a life hanging by a thread. And she'd taken an oath to preserve life, not judge it. 20 minutes later, both wounds were closed. Elena sat back on her heels, rolling her shoulders to ease the tension that had built during the delicate work. Done. The stitches will hold, but you need to stay still. No sudden movements, no lifting, nothing that could tear them open. How long? You should keep them in for at least 2 weeks. Longer would be better. Elena stood and started gathering the bloody gauze and used supplies. You'll need antibiotics. I'll give you what I have, but it won't be enough for a full course. You'll have to get more somewhere else. And painkillers. I can spare some low-grade stuff, but nothing strong. I have people who can get the rest. Of course you do. Elena disposed of the medical waste in the biohazard container, then moved to the sink to scrub her hands. The hot water ran red for several seconds before clearing. Can you stand? Adrian braced himself against the wall and pushed up slowly. His face went white, then gray, then slowly regained some color as he found his balance. Yeah, I can stand. There's an exam room in back with a bed. You should rest for a few hours at least. Give your body time to stabilize. Elena dried her hands and turned to find him watching her again with that unsettling intensity. What? You're not afraid of me. Should I be? Most people are. Elena considered that. Considered him, this tall, dangerous man with his expensive clothes and criminal empire and eyes that had probably seen things she couldn't imagine. He could overpower her easily, could hurt her, kill her, dispose of her body somewhere in the vast darkness outside, and no one would know until she missed her shift at the Henderson Ranch tomorrow. But he wouldn't. She knew it with the same bone-deep certainty that had made her open the door in the first place. Most people haven't spent 4 years in an emergency room, Elena said. I've seen scary. You're just hurt. Something shifted in Adrian's expression. Not quite a smile. Something softer, more complicated. You're either very brave or very naive. Or very tired, Elena gestured toward the back hallway. Come on, let's get you lying down before you fall down. He made it to the exam room under his own power, though she stayed close in case his legs gave out. The narrow bed wasn't meant for someone his size, but he managed, easing himself down with visible effort. There's a bathroom across the hall, Elena said. Sink, toilet, no shower. I have water bottles in the fridge and some crackers if you need food. I'll be up front doing paperwork. Call if you need anything. Elena. She paused in the doorway. Yes? Thank you. Adrian's voice was quiet, sincere. I mean it. Thank you. Elena nodded once and pulled the door mostly closed behind her, leaving it cracked a few inches in case he called for help. Back in the main room, she stood for a moment in the fluorescent brightness, staring at the blood on her floor. Her hands were steady, her breathing was calm, but somewhere deep inside, a voice was screaming that she'd just crossed a line she could never uncross. She'd harbored a criminal, treated him without reporting it, made herself an accessory to what? She didn't even know what crimes Adrian Vale had committed, didn't know who he'd hurt or what he'd done to earn a bullet. But you saved him anyway. Elena grabbed the mop and bucket from the supply closet and started cleaning. The blood came up easier than she expected, leaving only faint pink stains that would fade with another pass. She worked methodically, erasing the physical evidence of what had happened while her mind spun in circles. She should call Sheriff Morrison, should report this, should... The window shattered. Glass exploded inward with a sound like the world breaking, and Elena hit the floor on instinct, arms wrapped around her head as shards rained down around her. She registered the gunshot a half-second later. Not the movie version, not a clean bang, but a flat, brutal crack that echoed off the walls. Then another. Another. Someone was shooting into her clinic. "Elena!" Adrian's voice from the back room, sharp with alarm. She couldn't answer. Could barely breathe. Her heart slammed against her ribs as more bullets punched through the walls, splintering wood, shattering the glass cabinet door, destroying everything in their path. Then silence. Sudden and complete except for the ringing in her ears. Elena lifted her head slowly, glass falling from her hair. The front window was gone. The filing cabinet had 3 holes in it. The wall above the reception desk looked like Swiss cheese. Footsteps outside. Multiple sets. Moving fast. "They're here," Adrian said from directly behind her. Elena yelped and spun. He'd moved with impossible silence despite his injury, and now he stood over her with something in his hand that gleamed dull black in the emergency lighting. A gun. Adrian Vale had a gun. "Stay down," he said. Not a request. A command. Then he moved toward the ruined window, his movements controlled despite the stitches that had to be screaming with every step. "What are you doing?" Elena hissed. "Keeping you alive." Adrian reached the wall beside the window and pressed himself against it, gun held ready. "How many exits does this building have? Front door, back door in the storage room. Windows? 3. Here, 1 in the exam room, 1 in my office. They'll cover them all." Adrian's jaw tightened. Professional. Damn it! "Who are they?" "The people who want me dead." He glanced at her, and for the first time she saw something other than control in his eyes. Fear. Not for himself. For her. "And now they know I'm here, which means you're a witness, which means they'll kill me too." Elena finished the sentence, surprised by how steady her voice was. "I understand. I'm sorry." Adrian looked back out the window. "I'm so sorry. I thought I had more time." "Well, you don't." Elena pushed herself to her feet, ignoring the glass that cut into her palms. "So what do we do?" Adrian turned to stare at her. "We? I'm not going to sit here and wait to die." Elena crossed to the supply cabinet, the one that hadn't been shot, and pulled out her emergency bag. "I've got a truck out back. Keys are in my office. If we can make it to the back door, they'll be covering it. Then we fight through. Elena, I saved your life." She met his eyes, and something fierce and wild blazed up inside her. "So you're going to save mine. That's the deal. Understand?" For a heartbeat, Adrian just stared at her. Then something shifted in his expression. Respect, maybe, or recognition. "Okay," he said quietly. "Okay. Stay behind me. Move when I move, and if I tell you to run, you run and don't look back. Agreed?" Elena nodded. "Good." Adrian checked his gun, counted bullets, she realized, then looked at her one more time. "Ready?" No, she wasn't ready, would never be ready. But she nodded anyway, because the alternative was dying here. In the clinic she'd built, killed by strangers because she'd made the mistake of opening her door to save a life. "Let's go," Elena said. And together, they moved into the darkness. The back hallway stretched before them like a tunnel into hell. Emergency lighting cast everything in sickly green, throwing shadows that jumped and twisted with every movement. Elena's breath came fast and shallow as she followed Adrian, her emergency bag clutched against her chest like a shield that would do nothing against bullets. Adrian moved like water despite his injury, fluid, controlled, the gun tracking ahead of him with professional precision. He'd killed before. She knew it watching him, knew it in the way he cleared corners, the way he listened to the silence for sounds that weren't there. They were 3 feet from the storage room door when the back window exploded. Adrian shoved her sideways into the exam room as gunfire tore through the space where they'd been standing. Elena hit the floor hard, her bag spilling open and scattering supplies across the linoleum. She heard Adrian return fire through three quick shots that sounded impossibly loud in the enclosed space. Then he was pulling her up, his hand locked around her wrist. Move! They ran. No strategy now, no careful planning, just raw survival instinct driving them forward as bullets chewed through walls and glass rained down around them. Elena's office, she registered the doorway, saw Adrian kick it open, and then they were inside, and he was slamming the door and shoving her desk against it in one smooth motion. "Window!" he gasped. Fresh blood darkened his shirt. The stitches had torn. "Now!" Elena grabbed her keys from the desk drawer, muscle memory, thank God, and stumbled to the window. It was small, meant for ventilation, not escape. But it would have to work. She unlocked it and shoved it open as more gunfire erupted from the hallway. The desk jumped with each impact. Wood splintered. In seconds, they'd shoot through it. "Go," Adrian ordered. "You first." "I can't fit through that." He fired twice more through the door, buying them seconds. "You go. Get to your truck. Drive like hell and don't stop." "I'm not leaving you." "Elena." He looked at her and his eyes were calm, accepting. "This is what I deserve. But you don't deserve to die for helping me, so go. Please." Everything in her screamed to argue, but he was right. The window was too small for his shoulders, and the desk was failing, and in moments armed men would pour through that door and kill them both. She could save herself, should save herself. Elena grabbed a fire extinguisher from the wall mount instead. "What are you—" She didn't answer, just crossed to stand beside the door, extinguisher raised, and met his eyes with an expression that said, "Try to stop me." Adrian stared at her for one frozen second, then something that might have been a laugh escaped him. "You're insane." "Probably." Elena's heart hammered so hard she could feel it in her throat. "On 3? He shook his head but moved into position. 1. The desk started to slide backward, pushed from the other side. 2. Voices in the hallway. Commands in a language Elena didn't recognize. 3. Adrian yanked the door open and fired. Elena swung the extinguisher with everything she had, catching the first man through the door square in the face. He went down hard. She didn't wait to see if he got up, just grabbed Adrian's arm and pulled him toward the window. "Other way," he panted. "Storage room, through the back." They ran again, past the exam room where she'd stitched him up 20 minutes ago. It felt like years. Past the bathroom, dodging around the fallen man who wasn't moving, blood spreading beneath his head in a pool that looked black in the emergency lighting. Elena's stomach lurched, but she didn't stop, couldn't stop. Behind them, more voices, more footsteps. The storage room door stood open ahead, moonlight spilling through from the shattered window. Adrian hit it first, gun sweeping the darkness outside. "Clear. Where's the truck?" "East side, behind the fence." Elena pushed past him, keys ready. Her hand shook so badly she could barely hold them. 30 yards! That's a lifetime in the open. You have a better idea? He didn't. They both knew he didn't. Adrian grabbed her hand. His palm was slick with blood. Hers or his, she couldn't tell. And they ran into the night. The gravel lot crunched under their feet, impossibly loud. Elena waited for gunfire, for the impact that would take her down, for the darkness to swallow them both. But they made it to the fence. Over it, Adrian boosting her up with hands that had to be screaming with pain. Then he was over too, landing in a crouch that made him hiss through his teeth. The truck sat where she'd left it that morning, a battered Ford that had belonged to Dr. Chen before her. Elena hit the unlock button and the lights flashed once, and she sent up a silent prayer that the engine would turn over on the first try. It did. The old V8 roared to life, and Elena had never been so grateful for poor fuel efficiency in her life. "Drive," Adrian said, slumping into the passenger seat. "Just drive." She drove. Gravel spat from under the tires as she floored it, the truck fishtailing wildly before the wheels found purchase. The clinic fell away behind them, lights blazing from the shot-out windows like a beacon marking their escape route. Elena waited for pursuit, kept checking the rearview mirror, expecting headlights, expecting more gunfire. But the darkness behind them stayed empty. Maybe the attackers thought they were still inside. Maybe they were regrouping. Maybe... "They're tracking my phone," Adrian said quietly. "Probably have been for the last hour. That's how they found the clinic so fast. Elena's hands tightened on the wheel. So, throw it out the window. Already did, back at the clinic, before we ran. He shifted in the seat, one hand pressed against his side where fresh blood soaked through. But they know what direction we're heading now. They'll set up roadblocks on every route out of the valley. How many of them are there? At the clinic? Maybe 6. But they'll call in reinforcements. Adrian's voice was getting weaker. Blood loss, shock, or both. This isn't some small-time crew. This is Viktor Kozlov's organization. Russian, professional, utterly ruthless. He's been trying to take my territory for 2 years. Tonight was supposed to be the final move. So what do we do? We? Adrian turned his head to look at her. There is no we. You drop me at the next town and disappear. Change your name, empty your bank accounts, run somewhere far away and hope Kozlov decides you're not worth hunting. That's your plan? Hope? It's the best you've got. He coughed and blood flecked his lips. I'm sorry, this is my fault. All of it. But I can't protect you. Right now I can barely protect myself. Elena took a curve too fast, the truck's tires squealing. The road ahead stretched empty under a sliver of moon. They were heading into the mountains now, away from the valley, into terrain that got remote fast. No houses, no lights, just wilderness and whatever waited in the darkness. She should do what he said. Drop him somewhere and run. She had maybe $5,000 in savings, enough to disappear for a few months if she was careful. Enough to start over somewhere small, somewhere forgettable, somewhere Viktor Kozlov's people would never think to look. But the image of the clinic burning behind them, because it would burn, she knew it with grim certainty, kept flashing through her mind. Everything she'd built, everything she'd worked for, gone in one night because she'd made the mistake of opening her door. How do we stop them? Elena heard herself ask. What? Kozlov's people. How do we stop them from coming after me? Adrian stared at her like she'd suggested they sprout wings and fly. We don't. Elena, these are professionals. They don't just give up because there has to be a way. She cut him off, voice hard. You run a criminal organization. You said you've been fighting Kozlov for 2 years. So you must have resources, people, places you can go where you have the advantage. I do, but getting there means, then we go there. Elena met his eyes in the rear-view mirror. You said you can't protect me alone. Fine. So get back up, call your people, regroup, and then we figure out how to make Kozlov stop hunting me. That could take days, maybe weeks. Then I guess we're spending days together. The words came out steadier than she felt. Unless you have a better plan? Adrian was silent for a long moment. Then slowly, he reached into his pocket and pulled out a phone. Not the one he ditched, a second one, older and simpler. A burner, Elena realized. There's a place, he said quietly, in the mountains. My father built it as a bolt hole, somewhere to retreat if things went completely wrong. It's fortified, supplied, defensible. And it's off-grid. No electronic trail, no way to track us there. How far? 2 hours. Maybe 3 if we take the back roads to avoid checkpoints. He started dialing. But Elena, if we do this, if you come with me, you're all in. No half measures. Kozlov will see you as my ally, my partner. He'll come after you twice as hard. He's already coming after me. Elena navigated around a pothole, barely visible in the weak headlights. Might as well have backup when he does. Adrian finished dialing and held the phone to his ear. This is insane. Yeah, it really is. The phone rang once, twice. On the third ring, someone picked up. A man's voice, rough and suspicious. Who is this? Marcus. It's me. Adrian's voice shifted, taking on authority despite the pain. I need emergency extraction. The valley compound is compromised. I'm wounded, and I have a civilian with me who's now a target. Static crackled. Then Marcus, whoever he was, spoke again, sharper now. Wounded how bad? Gunshot through and through, stitched but bleeding. I'll live if we move fast. Location? Adrian glanced at Elena. She recognized the road. Highway 15 heading into the National Forest. Highway 15, mile marker 48, we're in a... He looked at the truck's interior. A Ford F-150, dark blue, moving north. Kozlov's men? 6 at the clinic. They'll have called in support by now. We have maybe an hour before they set up a net. More static. Elena heard other voices in the background, rapid conversation she couldn't make out. Then Marcus came back on. Okay, stay on 15 for another 10 miles, then take the logging road east at marker 58. There's an old ranger station 3 miles in. We'll meet you there in 90 minutes with a clean vehicle and medical supplies. The woman with me, she's a doctor. She saved my life, and now she's on Kozlov's list because of it. A pause. You bringing her to the mountain? Yes. Boss, you sure that's... I'm sure. Adrian's voice went hard. She's under my protection now. Full protection. Make sure everyone knows. Understood. 90 minutes. Don't be late. The line went dead. Adrian lowered the phone and closed his eyes. For a moment he just sat there, breathing carefully, each inhale and exhale measured. Then he opened his eyes and looked at Elena. Thank you, he said quietly. For what? For not running. For... He gestured vaguely at everything, the truck, the road, the insanity they'd just committed to, for still being here. Elena didn't know what to say to that. Didn't trust herself to speak around the knot of fear and adrenaline and something else she couldn't name that had lodged in her throat, so she just drove, watching the mile markers count upward, watching the forest close in around them like walls. At marker 58, she found the logging road exactly where Marcus had said it would be. The turnoff was nearly invisible, just a gap in the trees and a faded Forest Service sign. Elena took it without slowing, the truck bouncing over ruts and exposed roots. The ranger station appeared 15 minutes later, a small wooden building with a sagging porch and windows dark as empty eyes. Elena killed the engine and they sat in sudden silence, broken only by the tick of cooling metal and the whisper of wind through pine trees. Now what? She asked. Now we wait. Adrian shifted in his seat and immediately regretted it, his face going gray. And you should know, the men coming for us, my men, they're not nice people. They're loyal to me, they'll protect you because I told them to, but they're criminals, enforcers, the kind of men who solve problems with violence. Like you? Yes. Like me. He met her eyes. I'm not a good man, Elena. I've done things that would horrify you, hurt people, killed people, built an empire on blood and fear. And the place I'm taking you, the mountain fortress, that's the heart of it all. Once you see it, once you're inside, you can't pretend you don't know what I am anymore. Elena thought about that. About the stranger who'd collapsed into her arms 2 hours ago, bleeding and desperate. About the man who'd shielded her body with his own when bullets started flying. About the cold calculation in his eyes when he'd made that phone call, giving orders like someone used to being obeyed without question. She should be terrified, should be already planning her escape from whatever fresh nightmare she'd driven herself into. But instead she felt strangely calm, like she'd stepped off a cliff and was still falling, and there was nothing to do but wait for the landing. I know what you are, she said finally. I knew it when you told me your name. When you said no hospitals, no police, I'm not naive. Then why help me? Because you were dying. Elena turned to face him fully. And because I'm a doctor. That's what we do. We help people even when they don't deserve it, even when it costs us everything. Adrian studied her face in the dim light filtering through the trees. You're going to regret this. Probably, Elena smiled without humor. But I regret a lot of things. Might as well add one more to the list. Headlights cut through the darkness, and they both tensed. But the vehicle that pulled up next to them was a black SUV with tinted windows, and the man who climbed out was built like a wall with a face to match. Marcus, Elena guessed. He approached the driver's side window, his hand resting casually on a gun holstered at his hip. Elena rolled down the window. Dr. Vargas? His voice matched the one from the phone, rough, suspicious, with an accent she couldn't place. That's me. Marcus leaned down to look past her at Adrian. His expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. Concern, maybe. Or anger. You look like hell, boss. Feel worse. Adrian managed a weak smile. Help me to the other vehicle. We need to move. Marcus didn't argue. He came around to the passenger side and helped Adrian out with surprising gentleness for a man his size. Elena grabbed her bag and followed, watching as they got Adrian settled in the back seat of the SUV. Two other men emerged from the shadows, both armed, both watching the surrounding forest with the kind of alertness that said they expected trouble. One was tall and lean, with a scar bisecting his left cheek. The other was shorter, stockier, with eyes that tracked Elena's every movement. "This is Dr. Vargas," Marcus said to them. "She's under the boss's protection. Anyone touches her answers to me first, then him. Clear?" Both men nodded. The scarred one even offered something that might have been a respectful nod in Elena's direction. "Get in," Marcus told her, gesturing to the SUV. "We've got a medic kit if you need to work on him during the drive. But we need to move now. Kozlov's people hit 3 of our safe houses in the last hour. They're burning through the city looking for him." Elena climbed into the back seat next to Adrian. He'd slumped against the door, eyes closed, breathing shallow. The stitches had definitely torn. Fresh blood seeped through his shirt, dark and wet. "How bad?" Marcus asked from the driver's seat. "Bad enough." Elena opened the medic kit and found supplies better than anything in her clinic. Military grade. Serious. "But he'll live if we hurry." "Then we hurry." Marcus started the engine and pulled out, the SUV handling the rough logging road with ease. ETA to the mountain is 2 hours. There's a full medical setup there, everything you'll need. "What about my truck?" "Already being handled. My men will drive it to a chop shop, strip it, and dump the parts across 3 states. By tomorrow, it won't exist." Elena's hand stilled on the gauze she'd been unwrapping. Her truck. The last piece of her old life. Gone just like that. "I'm sorry," Marcus added, glancing at her in the rearview mirror. "But we can't leave any trail. Kozlov's people are good. They'll trace everything: phone records, vehicle registrations, credit card usage. We have to assume they know who you are by now. Dr. Elena Vargas, age 31, graduated medical school from Stanford, worked at County General before moving to the Valley. They'll tear your life apart looking for connections, for leverage, for any way to get to the boss through you." The casual recitation of her history made Elena's skin crawl. "How do you know all that?" "Because I looked you up the second Marcus called from the clinic." This from the scarred man in the front passenger seat. He turned to face her, and his eyes were flat and cold. "Standard procedure. Anyone who gets close to the boss, we investigate. You're clean, no criminal record, no debt, no suspicious associations, just a doctor who made bad luck into a life choice." "Roman." Adrian's voice was weak but carried warning. "Enough. Just saying what needs saying, boss. She should know what she walked into." "She knows." Adrian cracked his eyes open to look at Elena. "Don't you?" Elena thought about the clinic burning, thought about armed men shooting through her windows, thought about the very real possibility that she could have died tonight, could still die before this was over, all because she'd heard someone pounding on her door and made the choice to answer. "Yeah," she said quietly. "I know." The drive passed in tense silence, broken only by Elena's periodic checks of Adrian's vitals. His pulse was thready but steady, blood pressure low but not critical. The bleeding had slowed to a seep. He'd make it to the mountain. Probably. They left the paved roads behind entirely after the first hour, following a network of fire roads and private tracks that seemed to exist only in Marcus's memory. The forest pressed close on all sides, old-growth pine and fir that blocked out the stars. Elena had lived in these mountains for 6 months and never known this route existed. "How far from civilization is this place?" she asked. "Far enough that Kozlov would need an army to assault it," Marcus replied. "And even then, we'd see them coming from miles away. The mountain has surveillance, fortifications, supplies for 6 months. Your father knew what he was doing when he built it," he added, glancing at Adrian. "My father was paranoid." Adrian's voice was barely a whisper. "Thought everyone was out to get him." "He was right. Doesn't make him less paranoid." They climbed higher, the SUV's engine straining on steep grades. Elena's ears popped with the elevation change. Through gaps in the trees, she caught glimpses of valleys far below, scattered lights marking distant towns. People down there were sleeping peacefully, completely unaware that their quiet mountain night had been shattered by gunfire and blood. She envied them. "Almost there," Marcus announced. The forest opened suddenly onto a clearing carved into the mountainside. Elena leaned forward, trying to see what they were approaching, but the darkness revealed nothing except a wall of raw stone. Then Marcus touched something on the dashboard, and lights blazed to life. Not house lights, floodlights, security lights. Perimeter lighting that turned night into day and revealed what Elena had taken for natural rock face was actually a massive concrete structure built directly into the mountain itself. "Welcome to the fortress," Marcus said. "Home sweet home." The entrance was a steel gate that looked like it could stop a tank. It rolled open silently as they approached, revealing a tunnel cut deep into the mountain. They drove inside, and the gate closed behind them with a sound of absolute finality. Elena's heart hammered. This was real. This was happening. She'd just entered a literal fortress belonging to a criminal organization, and the only thing standing between her and whatever came next was a wounded man who could barely keep his eyes open. The tunnel opened into a massive garage carved from living rock. 6 vehicles sat in neat rows: SUVs, a sedan, even a motorcycle. All black, all probably armored. Men moved around the space, armed and alert, their eyes tracking the SUV as it pulled to a stop. "Get him inside," Marcus ordered, already moving. "Dr. Vargas with me. I'll show you the medical bay." 2 men helped Adrian out of the vehicle. He tried to stand on his own and made it about 3 steps before his legs gave out. They caught him before he hit the ground, supporting him between them as they headed for a door set into the rock wall. Elena followed Marcus through that door and into the mountain. The interior was nothing like she expected. Not rough cave walls and bare bulbs, but actual hallway with smooth concrete floors and recessed lighting. Doors branched off on both sides, each marked with simple labels: storage, communications, armory. Armory. Of course there was an armory. Marcus led her down 2 flights of stairs and through a security door that required both a keycard and a fingerprint scan. Beyond it, the space opened into what could only be called a medical bay. It had everything: examination table, surgical lights, monitors, a pharmacy stocked better than her clinic had been. Even an imaging machine in the corner that looked like a portable X-ray unit. "We get injured a lot," Marcus said, noting her expression. "The boss insisted on having a real medical setup. Usually we fly in a doctor from the city when we need one, someone who knows not to ask questions. But since you're here, I'll do what I can." Elena moved to the examination table where they'd laid Adrian. He was unconscious now, his face waxen under the harsh lights. "But I'll need help. I can't do surgery alone. I've assisted before. Field medicine, combat injuries." Marcus was already scrubbing his hands at the sink. "Tell me what you need." What she needed was a real hospital, real equipment, real surgical staff. What she had was a criminal's underground fortress, and a man who knew field medicine. It would have to be enough. "Gloves first," Elena said, pushing fear down and letting training take over. "Then we need to assess the damage and reclose what I already stitched. The wound needs to be cleaned properly, and I need to make sure there's no internal bleeding I missed the first time." "You stitched him up in the clinic?" "With veterinary supplies and local anesthetic." Elena snapped on gloves and began cutting away what remained of Adrian's shirt. It was patch him or watch him die. I chose patch. Marcus made a sound that might have been approval. "You've got steel, Doc. I'll give you that." They worked for the next 2 hours. Elena lost herself in the familiar rhythm of surgery. Assess, clean, repair, close. Marcus proved to be a competent assistant, handing her instruments before she asked, keeping suction clear, monitoring vitals without being told. He'd done this before, she realized, many times before. She didn't let herself think about what that meant. By the time she tied off the final suture, dawn light was probably breaking somewhere outside the mountain. But down here, in this fortress buried in rock and secrets, time had no meaning. There was only the work, only keeping Adrian Vale alive 1 breath at a time. "He'll sleep for a while," Elena said, stripping off her gloves. "The sedative I gave him was strong. When he wakes up, he'll need fluids, antibiotics, and monitoring for infection. But he should recover fully." "Good." Well, Marcus disposed of the medical waste with practiced efficiency. "Because we're going to need him. Kozlov won't stop." This was just the opening move. Elena slumped against the counter, exhaustion hitting her like a physical weight. "What happens now?" "Now you rest, eat, get cleaned up. There's a room prepared for you upstairs, private, secure, everything you need." Marcus studied her with those calculating eyes. "And then, when you're ready, We figure out how to keep you alive. That's simple? Nothing about this is simple, Doc. Marcus moved to the door. But you saved the boss's life tonight. That buys you protection, respect, a place here, for as long as you need it. He paused, one hand on the doorframe. He's not a good man. You should know that. But he's loyal to the people who are loyal to him. You've proven yourself loyal, so now we prove ourselves to you. He left before Elena could respond. She stood there in the silence, staring at Adrian's unconscious form on the table. His chest rose and fell with mechanical regularity, the monitors beeping their reassuring rhythms. She'd done it, saved him twice now. And in doing so, she'd bound her fate to his in ways she was only beginning to understand. Elena pulled up a chair and sat, too exhausted to walk upstairs, too wired to sleep. She watched Adrian breathe and tried not to think about the clinic burning, tried not to think about Viktor Kozlov hunting her, tried not to think about the fact that somewhere in the last few hours, she'd stopped being Dr. Elena Vargas, small-town physician, and become something else entirely. Something dangerous. Something that scared her almost as much as the men with guns. Adrian's eyes opened slowly, unfocused at first, then sharpening as they found her face. "You're still here," he whispered. "Where else would I be?" Smart people would have run. Yeah, well, Elena managed a tired smile. "I've never been accused of being smart." His hand found hers, fingers curling weakly around her palm. "Thank you. For everything. For—" "Save it." She squeezed his hand gently. "You can thank me by helping me stay alive. That's the deal, remember?" "I remember." His eyes drifted closed again, but he didn't let go of her hand. 48 hours. "I just need 48 hours to regroup, to call in resources, to turn this around. Can you give me that? Do I have a choice?" "There's always a choice." His voice was fading, the sedative pulling him back under. "But I'm hoping you choose to stay." Elena looked at their joined hands, looked at the fortress of stone and steel around them, looked at the armed men outside the door who would kill for this man without hesitation. She should run, should take whatever money Marcus offered and disappear into the night, should save herself while she still could. But instead she tightened her grip on Adrian's hand and said, 48 hours. Then we end this. "Deal," Adrian whispered. And as he slipped back into unconsciousness, Elena sat in the underground medical bay of a criminal fortress and wondered what the hell she'd gotten herself into. The room Marcus led her to was nothing like Elena expected. Not a cell, not a bare concrete box with a cot. Instead, she found herself standing in what could have been a high-end hotel suite. King bed with actual linens, private bathroom, even a window that showed a carefully projected image of mountain sunrise. The illusion was almost perfect. Almost enough to forget she was buried under tons of rock in a criminal fortress. Almost. "There's clothes in the closet," Marcus said from the doorway. "Probably won't fit perfect, but they're clean. Shower's hot. Food's in the kitchen on sub-level 1 whenever you're ready. You need anything, there's a phone by the bed. Extension 7 gets you me. Extension 1 gets you the boss, but he'll be out for at least another 6 hours. Elena turned to face him. "And Extension 0? Does that get me out of here?" Marcus's expression didn't change. "You're not a prisoner, Doc. You want to leave? I'll drive you to the nearest town myself. Give you cash, a new identity, everything you need to disappear." He paused. "But we both know that won't work. Kozlov's already hunting you. Within 48 hours, he'll have your photo, your entire history, and a price on your head big enough to make half the criminals in 3 states come looking. Out there, you're prey. In here, you're protected." Protected or trapped? Your choice which one you call it. Marcus stepped back into the hallway. "Get some rest. World looks different when you're not running on adrenaline and fear." He closed the door softly, and Elena was alone. She stood there for a long moment, listening to the silence. No wind, no crickets, no distant traffic. Just the whisper of climate control and the steady thrum of generators somewhere deep in the mountain's guts. The absence of normal sound felt oppressive, like the weight of all that stone pressing down. Elena crossed to the bathroom and caught sight of herself in the mirror. She barely recognized the woman staring back. Blood spattered her shirt and dried in her hair. Glass dust glittered on her skin. Her eyes looked hollow, shocked, like she'd seen things that couldn't be unseen. She had. The shower ran hot like Marcus promised. Elena stood under the spray until her skin turned red, watching pink water circle the drain. Adrian's blood mixing with hers, both of them washing away but neither of them clean. She scrubbed until her hands hurt, until every trace of the night was gone from her body, if not her memory. When she finally emerged, wrapped in a towel that was softer than anything she owned, exhaustion hit like a hammer. The bed called to her, but sleep felt dangerous. Like if she closed her eyes, she might wake up to find this was all real, all permanent, all choices she couldn't take back. Too late for that, a voice whispered in her mind. You already chose. Elena pulled on clothes from the closet, jeans that were 2 inches too long, a sweater that hung loose on her frame, someone else's clothes, someone else's life. She was wearing a stranger's identity in a fortress built on violence, and the only familiar thing was the terror sitting cold in her chest. She should have run. Should have let Adrian bleed out and called the sheriff and gone back to her quiet life treating flu and broken bones. Should have made the safe choice. But she'd stopped making safe choices the moment she opened that door. Elena found the kitchen on sub-level 1 exactly where Marcus said. It was industrial-sized, designed to feed a small army, which made sense given this place probably housed 20 or 30 of Adrian's men when fully staffed. Right now it was empty except for a woman at the counter chopping vegetables with mechanical precision. She looked up when Elena entered. Late 50s, gray hair pulled back tight, eyes that assessed and categorized in a single glance. You must be the doctor. I'm Sarah. I run the house when the boys aren't bleeding all over my clean floors. Her accent was pure Brooklyn, incongruous in this buried fortress. Elena. I know who you are. Whole mountain knows by now. Sarah went back to chopping. Marcus says you saved the boss's life. That true? I stitched up a gunshot wound. Whether that counts as saving his life is debatable. He's alive. You did the stitching. Sounds saved to me. Sarah scraped vegetables into a pot. You eat yet? Elena's stomach chose that moment to remind her she hadn't eaten since lunch yesterday, a lifetime ago. No. Sit. I'll make you something. It wasn't a request. Sarah moved around the kitchen with the confidence of someone who'd claimed this territory years ago and defended it against all comers. Within minutes, a plate appeared in front of Elena. Eggs, toast, bacon, everything impossibly normal. Thank you, Elena said quietly. Don't thank me. Just eat. You look like you're about to fall over. Sarah poured coffee into a mug and set it down with a solid thunk. And before you ask, yes, I know what this place is. Yes, I know what they do. And no, I don't have a problem with it. Been cooking for the Vale family for 30 years. Watched Adrian grow up from a boy who couldn't hurt a fly to, she gestured vaguely at the fortress around them. This, life makes you into what it makes you into. Judging doesn't help anyone. Elena ate mechanically, tasting nothing. The food sat heavy in her stomach, mixing with fear and exhaustion into something that felt like concrete. How long have you been here? In the mountain. Since they built it. Adrian's father, Thomas, he was the paranoid one, always said someone would come for the family eventually. Built this place as insurance. Sarah's hands moved steady and sure, adding ingredients to the pot. He died before he had to use it. Heart attack 5 years back. Adrian inherited everything, the business, the wars, the enemies. And now here we are, hiding in the hole Thomas dug. Do you ever leave? Sometimes. Got an apartment in the city I use when things are quiet. But when it gets hot like this, Sarah shrugged. Safer here. Kozlov's men don't care who gets caught in the crossfire. Cook, doctor, doesn't matter. You're in the Vale orbit, you're a target. The reality of that settled over Elena like a shroud. She wasn't just hiding, she was genuinely in danger. Would be in danger for as long as Viktor Kozlov decided she mattered. How long do these things usually last? Elena asked. The wars, I mean. Depends. Could be days, could be months. Sarah tasted the soup she was making and added salt. But this one with Kozlov? Been building for 2 years. It'll end when one of them is dead. That's how it always ends. The kitchen door swung open and Roman walked in, the scarred man from the SUV. His eyes found Elena immediately, cold and assessing. Boss is asking for you. Elena set down her fork. I thought he'd be unconscious for hours. Woke up early, wants to talk. Roman's hand rested casually on his gun. Now, Sarah made a dismissive sound. Let the girl eat, Roman. Adrian can wait 5 minutes. Sarah, 5 minutes won't kill him. Nearly dying might have, but 5 minutes? He'll survive. Sarah turned back to her soup, dismissing Roman with the confidence of someone who'd earned her position through decades of service. Roman's jaw tightened, but he backed down. 5 minutes. Then I'm coming back. He left, and Elena released a breath she hadn't known she was holding. Is everyone here that intense? The ones still alive are. Sarah refilled Elena's coffee. Survival of the paranoid. The relaxed ones got dead years ago. Elena finished eating quickly, her appetite gone, but her body needing the fuel. When Roman returned exactly 5 minutes later, she followed him without argument through the fortress's corridors. They passed more doors, more guards, more evidence of the vast operation Adrian ran from this buried command center. The medical bay looked different in the aftermath of surgery. Clean, sterile, all evidence of emergency care scrubbed away. Adrian sat propped against pillows on the exam table, shirtless, his torso wrapped in fresh bandages. He looked better than he had any right to, color returning to his face, eyes clear despite the pain that had to be screaming through his side. You should be resting, Elena said, moving to check his vitals automatically. I've been resting. Now I need to think. Adrian caught her wrist gently as she reached for the blood pressure cuff. And I need you to understand what happens next. Roman closed the door, sealing them in. Elena's pulse kicked up, but she kept her expression neutral. I'm listening. Adrian released her wrist and gestured to the chair beside the bed. Sit, please. She sat. Marcus did a full threat assessment while we were in surgery, Adrian began. Kozlov hit 5 of my safe houses last night, killed 3 of my people, burned your clinic to the ground, and put out word in the underworld that you're a target. 50,000 to whoever delivers you alive, 25,000 dead. The number hit Elena like a fist. $50,000. That was more money than most people saw in a year, more than enough to make her worth hunting. I can't leave the mountain, she said slowly, understanding dawning. Not safely. Not for a while, maybe not for weeks. Adrian's voice was steady, but she heard the regret underneath. I'm sorry. I brought this down on you, but I'm going to fix it. How? By ending this war. Adrian shifted, wincing. Kozlov made a mistake last night. He showed his hand too early, committed too many resources to one strike. He expected to kill me at the clinic. When that failed, he panicked, started burning through targets without strategy. That gives us an opening. Us? My organization. We're going to hit back. Hard, fast, before Kozlov can regroup. Adrian met her eyes. And when we do, I need you here, safe, because the next 48 hours are going to get ugly. Elena's throat felt tight. You're going to kill people. Yes. How many? As many as it takes. No hesitation, no apology. Just cold fact delivered in a voice that had ordered deaths before and would again. This is what I am, Elena. What I do. I tried to warn you. I know. And she did. Had known from the moment he'd told her his name, his business. But knowing intellectually and facing the reality were different things. I've spent my whole life saving people. And now I'm sitting in a fortress while you plan how many to kill. It's wrong, Adrian finished for her. It is wrong. Everything about this is wrong. But it's also survival. Mine, yours. Everyone in this mountain who's depending on me to end this before Kozlov burns us all down. Roman spoke from his position by the door. We've got intel that Kozlov is moving a major shipment through the port tomorrow night. Weapons, probably. If we hit it, we cripple his ability to arm his people. And we send a message that we're not beaten. Risky, Adrian said. Everything's risky right now. We don't act. We're just waiting for him to pick us off one by one. Roman's scarred face was grim. Marcus agrees, so does the rest of the council. We hit tomorrow night or we lose the advantage. Adrian was silent for a long moment, thinking. Elena watched his face, saw the calculation there, the weight of command that sat on his shoulders like physical burden. He wasn't just deciding tactics. He was deciding who lived and who died. Do it, Adrian said finally. But I want full surveillance, multiple as exit strategies, and backup teams on standby. Nothing gets left to chance. Understood. Roman nodded and left, closing the door behind him. Elena and Adrian sat in silence. The monitors beeped their steady rhythm. Somewhere in the fortress, men were already moving, already preparing for violence that would spill blood in the port tomorrow night. You could have lied to me, Elena said quietly. Could have told me you were planning something defensive, something that sounded better. I could have. Adrian's dark eyes found hers. But you asked for truth, so I gave it to you, even when it makes me look like exactly what I am. A criminal. A survivor. He reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away, and took her hand. There's a difference. Elena looked at their joined hands, hers small and clean, his large and stained with more than just the blood she could see. She should pull away, should maintain distance, should remember that this man ran an empire built on violence and fear. But his hand was warm, and in this moment, buried under a mountain with a price on her head, it was the only solid thing in a world that had turned liquid and strange. Tell me about him, she heard herself say. Kozlov. Who is he? Adrian's jaw tightened. Viktor Kozlov, Russian mob, third generation. His grandfather ran Brighton Beach, his father expanded into the ports. Viktor took over 5 years ago and decided the old territories weren't enough. Started pushing into my areas, first the docks, then shipping, then protection rackets. We've been at war for 2 years, quiet war mostly. Strategic hits, economic pressure, careful positioning. What changed? Me. Adrian's voice went flat. I started legitimizing parts of my operation. Investing in legal businesses, cleaning money through real estate and tech startups, building something that could eventually go legitimate. Kozlov saw that as weakness, thought I was going soft. He smiled without humor. So he decided to remind me what business we're really in. By trying to kill you. By trying to wipe out my entire command structure in one night. The attack at the clinic was coordinated with hits on my lieutenants across the city. Most of them survived, but 2 didn't. Good men. Loyal men. His hand tightened on hers. Their blood is on Kozlov's hands, and now I have to answer it. Elena heard the grief under the anger. For all his control, all his cold calculation, Adrian Vale cared about his people, mourned them, which made him either more human than she wanted to admit, or more dangerous, because emotions drove actions and actions led to bodies. What happens after tomorrow night, she asked. Depends on how it goes. If we hurt him badly enough, he might pull back. Regroup. Give us time to negotiate a ceasefire. Adrian's thumb traced small circles on the back of her hand. If not, this escalates until one of us is dead. And what about me? Where do I fit in all this? You stay here. Stay safe. I have men watching approaches to the mountain, surveillance on every access road. Kozlov would need an army to get to you, and even then, Adrian gestured at the fortress around them. This place was built to withstand siege. We have food, water, ammunition for months. You're as safe here as you can be anywhere. A beautiful cage. A temporary shelter. His voice softened. I know this isn't what you wanted. You saved a stranger's life and got dragged into hell for it. But I swear to you, Elena, I will end this. I will make sure you can go back to your life. It might not be the same life, might not be the same place, but you'll be free of this. Of me. Something twisted in Elena's chest at those last 2 words. She should want to be free of him, should be counting the hours until she could walk away and never look back. But the thought of him sending her away with money and a new identity felt wrong in ways she couldn't articulate. What if I don't want to go back? The words escaped before she could stop them. Adrian's eyes sharpened. What? My clinic is gone. My truck is gone. Viktor Kozlov wants me dead or delivered to him alive for God knows what purpose. Going back to the valley means going back to being a target. Elena met his gaze steadily. And maybe I'm tired of playing it safe. Maybe opening that door to let you in was the first real choice I've made in years. Elena, I'm not saying I want to join your organization. I'm not saying I approve of what you do. But I'm also not saying I want to run away the second this is over. She squeezed his hand. So don't make promises about setting me free like you can't wait to be rid of me. Adrian stared at her like he was seeing her for the first time. You're serious? I stitched you up with veterinary supplies, drove you to a mountain fortress, watched you plan strategic murders over breakfast. I'm clearly not in my right mind. Elena smiled, and it felt real. But yes, I'm serious. For a long moment, Adrian said nothing. Then slowly, carefully, he reached up with his free hand and cupped her face. His palm was warm against her cheek, his thumb brushing the dark circle under her eye. You should run, he whispered. You should take the money and disappear and never look back. Because if you stay, his voice dropped lower. If you stay, I won't want to let you go. Elena's breath caught. They were too close. This was too much, too fast, too dangerous in every way that mattered. But she didn't pull away. Then don't, she said. Adrian kissed her. It wasn't gentle, wasn't careful or tentative or any of the things a first kiss should be. It was desperate and fierce and tasted like blood and antiseptic and terrible choices that felt inevitable. Elena kissed him back, her hands finding his shoulders, careful of his injury but unable to stop touching him. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Adrian rested his forehead against hers. This is insane. Completely. You barely know me. I know you took bullets meant for me. I know you called your people to protect me before you even knew if you'd survive. I know you're trying to send me away for my own good, even though it's the last thing you want. Elena pulled back enough to meet his eyes. That's enough. It's not. I've done things. I don't care. And she realized with shock that she meant it. I don't care what you've done. I care what you do next. That's all any of us get. The next choice. Adrian studied her face like he was memorizing it. Then he kissed her again, softer this time, and she felt something shift between them. Something that terrified her and thrilled her in equal measure. The door opened without warning. Roman stood there, his expression carefully neutral. Boss, we've got movement on the South Access Road. 2 vehicles, unknown. Adrian pulled back immediately, command snapping into place like armor. How far? 3 miles out, moving slow like they're searching. Roman's hand rested on his gun. Could be hunters, could be scouts. Hunters don't move in coordinated patterns. Adrian swung his legs off the table, ignoring Elena's protest. Get everyone armed, lock down all entrances, and put Dr. Vargas in the secure room. I'm fine here. You're going to the secure room. Adrian's voice left no room for argument. Roman, personally escort her. Don't leave her side until I give the all clear. Roman nodded. This way, Doc. Elena wanted to argue, wanted to stay with Adrian, help somehow, do something other than hide. But the look on his face stopped her. This was him protecting her. This was him keeping his promise. So she went. The secure room was deep in the mountain's core, a windowless box with reinforced walls and a door that looked like it belonged on a bank vault. Roman ushered her inside and took up position just outside, gun drawn, eyes scanning the empty corridor. Elena sat on the narrow cot and wrapped her arms around herself. The walls felt like they were closing in. No sound penetrated from outside. She could be anywhere, buried alive, sealed in a tomb, completely cut off from the world. Minutes crawled past, then hours. Or maybe just minutes that felt like hours. Elena had lost all sense of time in this buried fortress. She thought about Adrian somewhere above her, wounded but commanding his forces. Thought about armed men approaching the mountain. Thought about what would happen if they got through the defenses, if they found her, if Kozlov's people claimed the bounty on her head. $50,000. Dead or alive. The price of saving one life. The door opened and Elena jumped to her feet, heart hammering, but it was just Marcus, his expression grim but controlled. They're gone, he said. Turned back about a mile from the perimeter. Either they saw our defenses or they were just reconnaissance. So we're safe? For now. Marcus stepped aside to let her exit. But Kozlov knows roughly where we are. He's probing defenses, looking for weaknesses. Tomorrow's raid just got a lot more important. Elena followed him back through the corridors. Why? Because if we don't hit him hard enough to make him pull back, he'll lay siege to this mountain. And siege warfare, Marcus's voice was flat. Let's just say it gets messy. They found Adrian in what he called the command center, a room filled with monitors showing camera feeds from around the mountain. He stood studying the screens, one hand pressed against his bandaged side. "You should be resting," Elena said. "I'll rest when this is over." Adrian didn't look away from the screens. "They're circling, testing us. By tomorrow night, they'll know every approach, every blind spot. We need to strike first." "Then we will." This from a new voice. Elena turned to see a woman in the doorway, late 30s, athletic build, eyes like cut glass. "The team's assembled. We hit the port at midnight tomorrow." "Good." Adrian finally turned from the screens. "Elena, this is Victoria. She runs tactical operations." Victoria's gaze swept over Elena, assessing and dismissing in one glance. "The doctor. Heard you're causing problems." "Saving lives, actually." "Same thing in our world." Victoria moved to the monitors and pulled up a map. "The port warehouse is here. Kozlov's people are moving the shipment in through the east entrance. We hit fast. Explosives on the trucks, take out the guards, destroy everything before they can respond." "Casualties?" Adrian asked. "Theirs? High. Ours? Hopefully minimal if we move smart." Victoria traced the map with one finger. "But there's always risk. You sure you want to do this while you're injured?" "I'm not going." The room went silent. Victoria turned slowly. "What? You're running this op. You, Marcus, Roman, full authority." Adrian's voice was steady. "I trust you to make the call in the field, and I need to stay here." "Because of the doctor." Victoria's tone was flat. "Because if Kozlov knows roughly where I am, he might use the port raid as a distraction for a mountain assault. I need to be here to defend our position." Adrian met Victoria's eyes. "And yes, because of the doctor. She's my responsibility now." Victoria's expression didn't change, but something shifted in her stance. "Understood. We'll bring you Kozlov's head. Just bring me confirmation the shipment's destroyed. The head is optional." Adrian smiled grimly, but appreciated. Victoria left to brief her team. Marcus followed, leaving Elena alone with Adrian in the blue glow of the monitors. "You're staying because of me," Elena said quietly. "I'm staying because it's the smart tactical choice." Adrian turned to face her fully. "But yes, also because of you. If something happens, if they get through, I need to be here. You don't have to protect me." "Yes, I do." He crossed the distance between them and took her hands. "You saved my life, Elena, twice now. That creates a debt I can never fully repay. But more than that," he paused, searching for words. "More than that, you looked at me, at all of this, and didn't run. Didn't judge, just made a choice to stay. No one's ever done that before." "What about all these people?" Elena gestured at the fortress around them. "Sarah, Marcus, Victoria, they stay. They stay because I pay them, because I protect them, because leaving would mean dying." Adrian's thumb traced circles on her palm. "You stay because you chose to. That's different. That's—" He didn't finish, didn't need to. Elena saw it in his eyes, the same impossible, dangerous thing she felt building in her chest. "This is crazy," she whispered. "Completely." Adrian smiled, and it transformed his face. "But I've built an empire on calculated risks. Maybe it's time I took one on something real." He kissed her again, and Elena let herself fall into it. Let herself forget about the price on her head, the men hunting her, the violence being planned for tomorrow night. For just this moment, in this buried fortress, she let herself feel something other than fear. When they finally broke apart, Adrian's expression had shifted. Harder, more focused. "Tomorrow's going to be dangerous. While my people are at the port, we'll be vulnerable here. Skeleton crew, minimal defenses. If Kozlov suspects, he'll attack," Elena finished. "Maybe. Probably." Adrian's jaw tightened. "I need you to stay in the secure room until the all clear. Promise me." "Adrian, promise me, Elena. Please." She saw the fear under his command, saw what it cost him to admit vulnerability. So she nodded. "I promise." "Thank you." He released her hands reluctantly. "Now get some rest. Tomorrow night, everything changes." Elena left him there, surrounded by his monitors and his plans and his terrible responsibilities. As she walked back to her room, she passed armed men preparing for war, saw them cleaning weapons, checking ammunition, talking in low voices about tactics and targets. This was her life now. This was what she'd chosen when she didn't run. In her room, Elena lay on the bed and stared at the false window showing false sunrise. Somewhere above this mountain, the real world continued. People went to work, raised families, lived normal lives that didn't include bounties and bullets and criminal empires. She could have had that life, could have made different choices. But she'd opened the door, and everything that came after was just consequence playing out. Elena closed her eyes and tried to sleep. Tomorrow would bring violence. Tomorrow would bring answers. Tomorrow would show whether Adrian's gamble could actually work, or if they were all just marking time until Kozlov found them. Tomorrow would change everything. But tonight, for just a few hours, she let herself rest. Let herself pretend that the man commanding an army in the next room was just a man, that the fortress around her was just stone, that the choice she'd made was anything other than jumping off a cliff and praying someone caught her before she hit bottom. Sleep came eventually, fitful and full of dreams she wouldn't remember. And when she woke to alarms screaming through the fortress and gunfire echoing off stone walls, Elena's first thought was crystal clear. Adrian had been wrong. Tomorrow hadn't waited until tomorrow. It had come for them tonight. Elena bolted upright in darkness, her heart already racing before her mind caught up to what had woken her. The alarms screamed through the mountain like wounded animals, high-pitched and relentless. Red emergency lights strobed in the hallway outside her door, turning everything into a nightmare of blood and shadow. She was moving before thought, grabbing jeans and pulling them on over the shorts she'd slept in, shoving her feet into boots. The door to her room burst open and Roman filled the doorway, gun drawn, his scarred face set in grim lines. "Secure room, now!" No preamble, no explanation. "What's happening?" "Kozlov's people. They hit the port team 20 minutes ago, walked right into an ambush. This was the plan all along, draw our forces out, then assault the mountain." Roman grabbed her arm, not gentle but not rough either. "We have maybe 5 minutes before they breach the outer defenses. Move." Elena ran. No argument, no hesitation. She followed Roman through corridors transformed by emergency lighting into alien landscapes. Armed men rushed past in the opposite direction, heading toward the sound of distant explosions that made the mountain shudder. Dust sifted down from the ceiling. "How many?" she gasped. 20, maybe more." Roman took a corner at speed, Elena stumbling to keep up. They came in 2 waves, vehicles up the access roads, teams on foot through the forest. Professional operation. Someone gave them detailed intelligence on our defenses. A traitor. The word hung unspoken between them. Someone inside had sold them out. They reached the secure room in the mountain's core, and Roman shoved her inside. "Lock it from the interior. Don't open for anyone except me, Marcus, or the boss. Anyone else, you assume they're hostile." "Where's Adrian?" "Command center, coordinating defense." Roman's eyes were hard. "He wanted to be here, but we need him running the show, so I'm here instead. And I'm not letting anything happen to you. Boss's orders." He slammed the door before she could respond. Elena heard the heavy locks engage from outside. Roman sealing her in, keeping his promise. She stood in the small space, breathing hard, trying to process what was happening. The port raid had been a trap. Kozlov had anticipated their move, let them commit forces, then struck where they were weakest. It was brilliant in a terrible way. And now people were dying because of it. Elena moved to the door and pressed her ear against the cold metal. Muffled sounds filtered through, gunfire, shouting, more explosions. The mountain itself seemed to groan under the assault. She thought about Adrian somewhere in this chaos, wounded and commanding, trying to hold together a defense against an enemy who'd outmaneuvered him. She thought about Victoria and Marcus and the others at the port, realizing too late they'd walked into a killing field. She thought about her clinic burning and her truck being stripped for parts, and the life she'd had 48 hours ago that felt like it belonged to someone else entirely. The lights went out. Complete darkness swallowed her, so absolute she couldn't see her own hands. Elena's breath caught, panic rising. Emergency power should have kicked in. Should have. Dim battery-powered lights flickered to life, barely enough to see by. But it was something. She wasn't buried in total blackness. Time became fluid. Elena had no way to measure it except by the rhythm of distant gunfire. Sometimes close, sometimes far, always constant. She tried to count the shots, tried to make sense of the patterns, but it was like trying to read a language she didn't speak. The door's locking mechanism clicked. Elena backed away from it, her pulse spiking. Roman had said don't open for anyone except... The door swung inward and Sarah stood there, her gray hair disheveled, blood on her shirt. "Come on, we're moving you." Roman said, "Roman's dead." Sarah's voice was flat, emotionless. Shock, Elena recognized. The woman was in shock. Shot covering the east corridor. His last words were to get you out before they reached this level. Elena's stomach dropped. Roman, the scarred man who'd assessed her with cold eyes, and then promised to protect her. Gone in the space of a heartbeat, because he'd chosen to stand between her and bullets. "Where's Adrian?" Elena heard herself ask. "Command center's been cut off. Fire in the main corridor." Sarah grabbed Elena's arm. "We have maybe 2 minutes. There's an escape tunnel that leads to a cave system half a mile north. If we can reach it..." An explosion rocked the mountain, closer than any before. The lights flickered and died completely, plunging them back into darkness. Sarah's grip tightened painfully on Elena's arm. "Move," the older woman hissed. They ran blind through pitch-black corridors, Sarah navigating from memory. Elena kept one hand on the wall, the other clutching Sarah's sleeve, trusting this woman she barely knew because there was no other choice. Behind them, the sounds of fighting grew louder, closer. Sarah took a sharp left into what felt like a narrower passage. The air changed, colder, damper. "Service tunnel," she panted. "Leads to..." Flashlight beams cut through the darkness ahead of them. Men's voices, speaking Russian. Elena's blood froze. Sarah yanked her backward, into a side passage Elena hadn't known was there. They pressed against the rough stone wall, barely breathing, as the beams swept past their hiding spot. The voices grew louder. 3 men, maybe 4, moving methodically, checking every opening. Sarah's hand found Elena's and squeezed once. Then she stepped out into the main tunnel. "Looking for something?" she called out. The flashlights converged on her. Elena had 1 second to see Sarah standing defiant in the beam of light before the old woman reached into her apron and pulled out a gun Elena hadn't known she carried. Sarah fired twice. Men screamed. Then return fire lit up the tunnel like lightning, and Sarah went down hard. "Run!" she gasped, blood bubbling at her lips. "Run, girl!" Elena ran. She crashed through darkness with no idea where she was going, hands scraping against stone walls, feet catching on uneven ground. Behind her, flashlight beams stabbed through the black and men shouted. They were coming. They were... The floor disappeared. Elena fell, her scream cut off as she plunged into empty air. She hit water hard enough to drive all breath from her lungs, went under in complete darkness, not knowing which way was up. Her hand found rock and she pushed off, breaking the surface and gasping for air. Underground river. She'd fallen into an underground river. The current grabbed her, pulling her along through pitch darkness. Elena tried to swim, tried to find purchase, but the water was too fast, too cold. It dragged her through tight spaces where rocks scraped her shoulders, through wider chambers where her gasps echoed, through hell-made liquid. Her head cracked against something hard and stars exploded behind her eyes. She went under again, swallowing water, choking. Her fingers found an outcropping and she clung to it desperately, hauling herself up onto what felt like a narrow ledge. Elena lay there shaking, coughing up river water, listening to the rush of current in the darkness. She was lost. Completely and utterly lost in a cave system beneath a mountain under assault. No light. No way to know which direction led out. No way to know if Adrian was alive or dead, if the fortress had fallen, if Kozlov's people were already spreading through the tunnels looking for her. She could die here. Alone in the dark, $50,000 unclaimed because no one could find her body. The thought was almost funny. Elena's laugh came out broken, edged with hysteria. She clamped a hand over her mouth to muffle it. Couldn't make noise. Couldn't give away her position if anyone was close enough to hear. She forced herself to breathe slowly, to think. She was alive. She was breathing. That meant she had a chance. Elena started moving along the ledge, one hand on the wall, testing each step before committing her weight. The ledge widened into a passage. The passage sloped upward. Up was good. Up meant away from the river, toward the surface. She had no idea how long she climbed. Time lost all meaning in the absolute darkness. Her hands found holds by feel alone, her feet finding purchase on stone worn smooth by centuries of water. Once she slipped, nearly fell, caught herself by fingertips alone. Her muscles screamed, her lungs burned. But she kept moving because the alternative was dying here, and she'd already decided she wasn't ready for that. A sound reached her through the darkness. Voices. Distant but distinct. Elena froze, listening. The voices came from above and ahead, speaking English, not Russian. She crept forward slowly, following the sound until she saw light, real light. Not flashlight beams, but the steady glow of electric lanterns. She rounded a corner and found herself staring at an opening in the cave wall. Beyond it, a natural cavern had been converted into what looked like a supply depot. Crates stacked along the walls, water barrels, first aid kits, and 3 men, armed and alert, standing guard. One of them turned and saw her. His gun came up, finger on the trigger. "Wait!" Elena raised her hands, stepping into the light. She was soaked, bloody, probably looked half dead. "I'm with Adrian. I'm the doctor." The man didn't lower his gun. "Prove it." "I stitched him up 2 nights ago at my clinic. Gunshot wound through and through, left side below the ribs. He has a scar through his left eyebrow, and he—" Elena's voice cracked. "Please, I need to know if he's alive." The men exchanged glances. Then the one with the gun lowered it fractionally. "She matches the description, Dr. Vargas, right?" Elena nodded, relief making her knees weak. "Boss said if you made it to the escape routes, we're to get you out immediately." He gestured to the others. "This way. We've got a vehicle waiting at the north exit." "What about Adrian? What about the mountain?" "Mountain's lost. They breached the command center 10 minutes ago. Boss ordered full evacuation." The man's face was grim. "We're the last ones out. If you hadn't shown up in the next 5 minutes, we were leaving without you." "Where is he? Where's Adrian?" "Don't know. He was holding the command center with Marcus and Victoria when comms went down. Could be dead. Could be captured." The man started moving toward a passage at the far end of the cavern. "Either way, our orders are clear. Get you out. Get you safe." Elena wanted to argue, wanted to demand they go back, find Adrian, mount some kind of rescue. But she saw the exhaustion in these men's faces, the resignation. They'd already lost. The fortress had fallen. Going back meant dying for nothing. She followed them through passages that gradually widened, sloped upward, showed signs of reinforcement. These were the planned escape routes Sarah had mentioned, emergency exits built for exactly this scenario. They emerged into moonlight and mountain air so cold it hurt to breathe. The cavern exit was hidden behind rocks and scrub brush, invisible unless you knew exactly where to look. A black SUV waited with the engine running. "In," the lead man ordered. Elena climbed into the back seat. One man took the wheel, another the passenger side. The third stayed behind, she realized with shock, staying to cover their escape or die trying. The SUV pulled out onto a narrow track that barely qualified as a road. Elena twisted in her seat to look back at the mountain. From this angle, she could see smoke rising from multiple points, could see the glow of fire deep inside the tunnels. The fortress was burning. Everything Adrian had built, everything his father had prepared, all of it going up in flames. "Where are we going?" she asked. "Safe house in the city. Boss's backup plan for if everything went sideways." The driver navigated around a boulder. "We hole up there, wait for word from anyone who made it out, figure out next steps." "And if no one made it out?" The men didn't answer. They didn't need to. The drive took 3 hours, going slowly over bad roads, avoiding highways and major routes. Elena watched the forest give way to farmland, farmland to suburbs, suburbs to the industrial sprawl at the city's edge. Dawn was breaking by the time they pulled into a parking garage beneath a building that looked abandoned. The safe house was on the 3rd floor, an apartment with windows that had been bricked over from the inside, reinforced door. Enough supplies to last weeks. The men did a sweep, declared it secure, and left Elena in a bedroom while they took up positions watching the approaches. She sat on the edge of the bed and stared at her hands. They were cut, bruised, still shaking slightly from cold and adrenaline and shock. Sarah was dead. Roman was dead. How many others? How many people had died tonight because she'd opened her clinic door? The weight of it crashed down all at once. Elena curled onto her side and let herself cry. For Sarah, who'd fed her and protected her. For Roman, who'd died keeping his promise. For the clinic that had been her dream. For the life she'd lost. For the impossible situation she'd fallen into without meaning to. She cried until there were no tears left. Then she just lay there, numb and empty, listening to the distant sounds of the city waking up. People going to work. Living normal lives. While she hid in a bricked-up apartment, waiting to find out if the man she'd started to care about was alive or dead. The door opened quietly. Elena didn't turn to look. "Dr. Vargas?" One of the guards. "We got a call. Someone's coming." That made her sit up. "Who?" "Didn't say. Just gave the correct codes and said they'd be here in 20 minutes. The guard's expression was unreadable. "Could be one of ours. Could be a trap." "What do we do?" "We wait. And we're ready for either." He hesitated. "Boss was real clear about keeping you alive, Doc. Whatever happens, we do that. Understand?" Elena understood. These men would die for her if necessary. More bodies added to the pile. More deaths she'd carry. She moved to the living room and watched the guards prepare. They positioned themselves with clear fields of fire covering the door, checked their weapons, went silent and still. Professional, deadly. 20 minutes crawled past, then footsteps in the hallway outside. The guards tensed, fingers on triggers. Elena held her breath. 3 knocks. A pause. 2 knocks. Another pause. 1 knock. The lead guard moved to the door, gun ready. "Code?" "Sanctuary?" A man's voice muffled by the steel door. "The boss sends his regards." The guard looked at his partner, who nodded. Some prearranged signal Elena didn't understand. He unlocked the door and pulled it open, gun never wavering. Marcus stumbled through. He was in bad shape, burn marks on his face, one arm hanging useless, blood soaking through improvised bandages. But he was alive. Elena rushed forward to help him to the couch. "Adrian?" she asked. "Victoria?" Marcus's face told her the answer before he spoke. "Victoria's dead. Died holding the armory so we could evacuate. She..." His voice broke. "She bought us 5 minutes, saved 20 lives." "And Adrian?" "Taken." Marcus met her eyes, and she saw rage there. Pure, incandescent rage. Kozlov's people got him. He surrendered to save the rest of us, made them promise to let everyone else go in exchange for him. Marcus laughed bitterly. "They promised. Then they started executing people anyway. We lost... God, we lost so many." Elena's chest went tight. "He's alive, though. They took him alive. For now. Kozlov wants him as a trophy. Wants to break him, parade him, make an example." Marcus winced as Elena started examining his injuries. "We have maybe 48 hours before Kozlov gets tired of playing and just kills him. Then we have 48 hours to get him back." Marcus stared at her. "Doc, we just lost our fortress, 3/4 of our fighting force, and our entire command structure. We can't mount a rescue. We can barely keep ourselves alive." "Then we do it different." Elena's voice was steel. "You said Kozlov took Adrian as a trophy. That means he'll want to show him off. Means there's a location. Means there's a chance. Even if we knew where, and we don't, it would be suicide to try. So we find out where. And we go anyway." Elena finished bandaging Marcus's arm and met his eyes. "He chose to save you, all of you. Now you choose to save him." For a long moment, Marcus said nothing. Then slowly, painfully, he nodded. "The network. There's still people loyal to the boss. Street crews, informants, allies who owe him favors. If Kozlov's holding him somewhere in the city, someone will know. Then we find them. We gather everyone we can, and we get him back." Elena heard the conviction in her own voice and recognized it. This was the same certainty that had made her open the door to a bleeding stranger. The same refusal to let someone die when she could save them. However long it takes, whatever it costs. Marcus studied her face. "You love him." It wasn't a question. Elena didn't answer directly. "I made a choice. I'm standing by it." "All right." Marcus pulled out a phone, not the one he'd carried before, a different burner. "I'll make calls. Pull in every favor, every contact, everyone who's ever owed the boss anything. By tonight, we'll know where Kozlov's keeping him. He paused. And Doc? This won't be like the mountain. This will be ugly. Street fighting, close quarters, people will die, probably us included. I know. Elena thought about Sarah's last stand, about Roman falling, about Victoria buying 5 minutes with her life. But we're doing it anyway. Marcus made the calls. Elena listened as he worked through a network she hadn't known existed. Street bosses and dock workers, casino managers and corrupt cops, information brokers and fixers. The criminal underworld Adrian had built his empire in, now being called upon to save its fallen king. The pieces came together slowly. Kozlov was holding Adrian in a warehouse near the port, the same port where the trap had been sprung. Insurance, Marcus explained. Kozlov had claimed that territory, and he wanted everyone to know it. Holding Adrian there was a symbol, a message. By nightfall, they had a plan. It wasn't a good plan. It was barely a plan at all. But it was something. 12 men loyal to Adrian had survived and answered Marcus's call. Not an army. Not even close to what they'd need for a proper assault. But 12 men willing to die trying to save their boss. Elena watched them gather in the safe house, these hard men with their scars and their weapons, and their loyalty that ran deeper than money. They looked at her with curiosity, maybe some resentment. She was the outsider, the civilian who'd brought trouble to their door. But when Marcus explained her role, medical support, ready to treat Adrian the moment they got him out, they nodded acceptance. The boss had protected her, so they would too. We move at midnight, Marcus told the assembled group. Kozlov's men change shifts then. 5-minute window where coverage is weakest. We go in fast, hit hard, grab the boss and run before they can organize a response. What about the doctor? One man asked. Stays with the van 2 blocks out. We radio when we have them. She's ready to work. Marcus's eyes were hard. No one gets left behind this time. We all go home, or none of us do. The men dispersed to prepare. Elena found herself alone with Marcus in the small kitchen. Thank you, he said quietly. For giving a damn. Most people wouldn't. He's a criminal, a killer, someone most of the world would be happy to see dead. He's also someone who threw himself between me and bullets, someone who surrendered to save his people, someone who... Elena stopped, the words catching in her throat. Someone who matters. Marcus nodded slowly. Yeah, he does. He turned to look out the bricked-over window. This goes bad tonight, and it probably will. You run. Don't try to save anyone. Don't wait around. Just run and don't stop until you're somewhere Kozlov can't find you. I'm not running. Elena, I'm not running, she repeated harder. I ran from the mountain and look what happened. People died buying me time to escape. I'm done running. Either we save Adrian or we don't. But I'm there until the end. Marcus's scarred face softened slightly. He was right about you. You've got more steel than most of my men. I'm just a doctor who made bad choices. No, you're someone who made hard choices and stood by them. Marcus checked his watch. 4 hours until midnight. Try to rest. You'll need it. Rest was impossible, but Elena tried. She lay on the narrow bed and stared at the ceiling, thinking about everything that had led to this moment. A stranger pounding on her door. A choice to help. A choice to stay. A choice to fight back instead of accepting defeat. She thought about Adrian somewhere in that warehouse, probably hurt, definitely scared, even if he'd never admit it. Wondering if anyone was coming, if anyone cared enough to try. She'd show him. They all would. At 11:30, they loaded into 3 vans. Elena rode with Marcus, medical supplies stacked around her. The men were quiet, focused, checking weapons with practiced efficiency. These weren't soldiers. They were criminals, street fighters, men who'd chosen violence as a career. But tonight they were something more. Tonight they were brothers going to save family. The port loomed dark and industrial, all rusted metal and shadowed warehouses. Marcus navigated to a position 2 blocks from the target and killed the engine. They sat in tense silence. 5 minutes, Marcus said into his radio. Elena's heart hammered. This was real. This was happening. In 5 minutes, these men would assault a fortified position held by trained killers. Most of them probably wouldn't come back. Hey, Doc? One of the younger fighters, barely 20, turned to look at her. If I don't make it, tell my mom I was doing something good, helping someone. She always wanted me to help people. Elena's throat tightened. Tell her yourself when you come back. He smiled, sad and knowing. Yeah, sure. Marcus checked his watch. 60 seconds. Everyone ready? The men chambered rounds, checked magazines, exchanged nods. Warriors preparing for battle. Go, Marcus ordered. The vans erupted with movement. Men poured out, spreading into tactical formations, moving toward the warehouse like shadows. Elena watched them go, these criminals who'd become heroes for one night. Then she waited. The first gunshot cracked the silence exactly 90 seconds later. Then more. Then the sustained roar of automatic weapons fire. Screams, explosions. The night lit up with muzzle flashes and fire. Elena gripped her medical kit, counting seconds, waiting for the call. Waiting to know if this insane rescue had any chance of working. Waiting to find out if the man she'd saved twice already would live to see another dawn. The radio crackled to life. We've got him. Marcus's voice barely audible over gunfire. We've got the boss, falling back. The transmission cut off in static and screaming. Elena grabbed the radio. Marcus, Marcus! No response. Just the sound of battle and then nothing. She stared at the dark warehouse, at the smoke rising, at the chaos her choices had created. And then she made one more choice. Elena grabbed the medical kit, opened the van door, and ran toward the fire. Elena ran through smoke and chaos with her medical kit clutched against her chest like armor. Every instinct screamed at her to turn back, to hide, to survive. But louder than instinct was the memory of Adrian's hand in hers, his voice saying, I won't want to let you go. She wouldn't let go either. The warehouse loomed ahead, its loading dock spilling orange light and black smoke into the night. Bodies littered the approach, some in tactical gear, some in street clothes, all bleeding or worse. Elena forced herself not to look too closely, not to count them, not to think about the young fighter who'd asked her to tell his mother he'd done something good. Gunfire crackled from inside the building. She pressed herself against the metal siding and edged toward a side entrance hanging half off its hinges. Through the gap, she could see the warehouse interior, a maze of shipping containers and crates, perfect cover for the firefight raging within. Fall back! Marcus's voice somewhere in the chaos. Get him to the extraction point! Elena slipped through the entrance and immediately dropped behind a concrete barrier as bullets sparked off metal above her head. Her heart hammered so hard she could feel it in her throat. This was insane. She was unarmed, untrained, a doctor playing soldier in a war she had no business fighting. But Adrian was in there, hurt, needing her. She moved deeper into the warehouse, using the containers as cover, following the sound of Marcus's commands. The smoke was thicker here, acrid and choking. Fire somewhere. She could hear it roaring, could feel the heat building. The whole place would go up soon. A figure stumbled around a container and Elena nearly screamed before recognizing one of Adrian's men. He was bleeding from a shoulder wound, his face gray with shock. Doc? He blinked at her like she was a hallucination. What the hell? You need to get out of here. Where's Adrian? East side by the offices. Marcus and 3 others are trying to... An explosion cut him off, close enough to knock them both off their feet. The man didn't get up. Elena checked his pulse, still alive, unconscious, and kept moving. She found them in a narrow corridor between stacked containers. Marcus and 2 other men formed a defensive position around a 4th figure slumped against the wall. Even through the smoke and darkness, Elena recognized Adrian's frame. Elena! Marcus's shock lasted only a second before training kicked in. Get down! She dropped as gunfire tore through the space where her head had been. One of Marcus's men returned fire, his weapon chattering in short, controlled bursts. The attackers fell back, but they'd be regrouping. Seconds, maybe minutes before the next push. Elena crawled to Adrian and her breath caught. They'd beaten him. His face was a mass of bruises, one eye swollen shut, lip split. Burns marked his arms. Cigarettes, she recognized with horror. His shirt hung in tatters, revealing more bruises across his ribs. But he was breathing, conscious. His good eye found her and something shifted in his expression. You shouldn't be here, he rasped. Neither should you, but here we are. Elena's hands were already moving, assessing damage. Can you walk? Can I walk? She asked. Adrian tried to laugh and it came out as a cough that brought up blood. They broke my leg, Elena, and probably a few ribs, and he stopped, his face going gray. They wanted information, names of my people, locations. I didn't give them anything. I know you didn't. Elena pulled bandages from her kit. The leg was bad, compound fracture, bone visible through torn skin. Moving him was going to be agony, but staying meant dying when the fire reached this section. This is going to hurt. Everything hurts. His hand found hers, squeezed weakly. You need to go. They have the exits covered. This was always a one-way trip. Then we make it a two-way trip. Elena looked at Marcus. How do we get out? We don't. Marcus fired another burst down the corridor. East exit is blocked. West exit is on fire. North is where we came in, and there's at least 20 of Kozlov's men between us and the vans. What about south? Drop straight into the bay. 30-foot fall into freezing water. Marcus reloaded smoothly. We're pinned, Doc. Best I can do is buy you and the boss time to— No! Adrian's voice cut through with surprising strength. No more sacrifices. We all go or none of us do. Boss, that's an order, Marcus. Adrian struggled to sit up straighter, his face contorting with pain. You've lost enough people saving me. I won't have more deaths on my conscience. Elena was barely listening. Her mind raced through options, medical training warring with pure survival instinct. Adrian couldn't walk. They were surrounded. Fire was closing in. Conventional escape was impossible, which meant they needed something unconventional. The bay, she said suddenly. We go south. Marcus stared at her. Did you miss the part about 30-foot drop into freezing water? The boss can't swim like this. Hell, I'm not sure I can swim like this. He gestured at his burned arm. So we don't swim. We float. Elena pulled out her phone. Somehow it had survived everything, and pulled up a map. This warehouse backs onto a shipping channel. Current runs south at about 3 knots. If we can get into the water and survive the fall, the current carries us away from the firefight. Half a mile downstream, there's a public dock. We call the vans, they meet us there. That's insane, one of the other fighters said. You have a better idea? Elena met his eyes. Because I'm open to suggestions that don't end with all of us dead. The man had no answer. South exit it is. Marcus moved to support Adrian from one side. But if we're doing this, we do it now. This whole building's going to collapse in the next 10 minutes. They moved as a unit, Marcus and one fighter carrying Adrian between them, Elena and the other man providing what cover they could with the limited ammunition remaining. Every step was contested. Kozlov's men pressed from multiple directions trying to cut off their retreat. The fighters with Elena and Marcus returned fire, buying seconds at a time. The south wall appeared through the smoke, and with it the door Marcus had mentioned. It was barely a door, more like a service hatch for loading directly onto ships. Beyond it, Elena could hear water lapping against the building's foundation. Once we go through, there's no coming back, Marcus warned. Everyone understand? Nods all around. These men knew the stakes. Marcus kicked the door open and smoke poured out into the night. The drop was exactly as advertised, 30 feet straight down into black water that looked cold enough to kill. Elena's stomach lurched. I'll go first, one of the fighters said. Test the depth. Make sure it's survivable. He jumped before anyone could argue. They watched him fall, hit the water with a splash that seemed impossibly loud, and disappear beneath the surface. Seconds ticked past. 5, 10, 15. He surfaced, gasping. It's deep! Current strong but manageable. Come on! The second fighter went next, then Marcus threw one end of a rope down to them. We lower the boss. You guys catch him. Cushion the impact. It took all of them working together to get Adrian to the edge. He was barely conscious now, shock and pain pulling him under. Elena held his hand as Marcus and the remaining fighter prepared the rope. Stay with me, she whispered. Just a little longer. Stay with me. Adrian's eye opened, focused on her face. You came back. You actually came back. Of course I did. Why? The question hung between them, simple and impossible. Why had she run into a burning warehouse for a criminal she'd known for 3 days? Why risk everything for a man who'd brought violence to her doorstep? Because you would have done the same for me, Elena said simply. And because I choose to. Something shifted in Adrian's expression. Through the pain, through the exhaustion, something that looked like hope. Gunfire erupted behind them. Close. Too close. Go! Marcus shoved Elena toward the opening. Jump! Now! Elena jumped. The fall stretched forever and was over in an instant. She hit the water and went under, the cold stealing her breath. Everything was dark, disorienting, the current grabbing her immediately. She kicked hard, broke the surface, gasped for air. Here! One of the fighters grabbed her, kept her head above water. We've got you! Above them, Marcus and the last fighter were lowering Adrian on the rope. He hung limp in the makeshift harness. Unconscious or dead, Elena couldn't tell from this distance. The rope jerked as something hit Marcus. A bullet, she realized with horror, watching him stagger. But he held on, kept lowering Adrian even as blood spread across his shoulder. The last fighter helped, and together they got Adrian to within 10 feet of the water before the rope gave out. He fell the last distance and hit hard. The fighters caught him, keeping his head up. Elena swam over, her medical training screaming as she assessed his condition. Still breathing, still alive, barely. Marcus appeared at the edge above them. Go! Current will take you south. Vans will be... An explosion tore through the warehouse interior, and suddenly the whole south wall was collapsing. Marcus and the fighter jumped just as tons of metal and concrete came crashing down. They hit the water as debris rained around them, huge chunks of buildings smashing into the bay with impacts that sent waves washing over Elena's head. When she surfaced, coughing and choking, the warehouse was fully engulfed. Flames reached toward the sky, turning night into hellish day. And they were moving, the current pulling them away from the inferno, away from the firefight, away from immediate death. But the water was so cold. Already Elena's fingers were going numb. Adrian was completely unconscious, his broken leg trailing uselessly. Marcus and the fighters were struggling just to keep themselves afloat. They weren't going to make it half a mile. They'd freeze or drown long before reaching the dock. Elena's phone buzzed in her pocket. Waterproof case, she remembered dimly, bought years ago after dropping one in a sink. She fumbled it out with numb fingers and saw a message from an unknown number. North Dock, 400 yards. Boat waiting. She showed it to Marcus, who nodded wearily. Bosses, backup plans. Always had backup plans. They let the current carry them, using what little strength they had left to angle toward the North Dock. Elena kept one hand on Adrian's chest, feeling for the rise and fall of his breathing. Still there, still fighting. She wouldn't let him stop now. The dock materialized out of darkness, old, sagging, but solid. A small motorboat was tied there, engine running, a figure at the wheel Elena couldn't make out through the smoke and darkness. Hands reached down to pull them out of the water, strong hands, efficient. Elena found herself hauled onto the dock like a landed fish, shaking so hard her teeth rattled. The fighters came next, then Marcus, then finally Adrian. "Get him on the boat," a woman's voice commanded. Familiar. Elena's exhausted brain took a moment to place it. Sarah. Elena's head snapped up. Sarah stood there, very much alive, directing the operation with calm authority. Blood stained her shirt, but she moved without hindrance. "You're dead," Elena said stupidly. "I saw you. You saw me buy you time." Sarah's Brooklyn accent had never sounded better. Kevlar vest. Hurts like hell, but beats the alternative. Now get on the damn boat before Kozlov's people regroup. They piled into the boat. Too many bodies in too small a space, but no one complained. The moment the last man was aboard, Sarah gunned the engine and they shot away from the dock, putting distance between themselves and the burning warehouse. Elena collapsed next to Adrian and immediately started working. She had no proper supplies, everything lost or waterlogged, but she had hands and knowledge and desperate determination. She checked his vitals, his breathing, his pulse. All weak, but present. "Medical kit in the cabin," Sarah called over the engine noise. "Real supplies this time, not the makeshift crap you've been using." Elena stumbled to the cabin and found a kit that would have made a hospital jealous. She grabbed what she needed and returned to Adrian's side. The boat bounced over waves, making everything harder, but she'd sutured in worse conditions. She stabilized his leg as best she could, wrapped his ribs, treated the burns and lacerations. Around her, Marcus and the fighters worked to warm themselves, checking their own injuries, processing what they'd just survived. "Everyone make it?" one of them asked. Marcus did a count. 7 of us went in, 5 came out. His voice was flat. Tommy and Reyes didn't make the extraction. Silence fell over the boat. 2 more names added to the list. 2 more men who'd died tonight because Adrian Vale was worth saving. Elena looked down at the unconscious man she'd been treating for 3 days that felt like 3 years. Was he worth it? Was anyone worth the body count that had piled up since she'd opened her clinic door? She thought about Sarah standing defiant in a tunnel, buying time with her own life. About Roman falling while covering her escape. About Victoria holding the armory. About the young fighter asking her to tell his mother something good. About all of them choosing to fight, to sacrifice, to die if necessary, for the man lying broken in front of her. They'd thought so. They'd made their choice with eyes wide open. And so had she. The boat docked at a private marina on the city's outskirts. More of Adrian's people waited there, a doctor this time, a real one with a medical van and everything needed to treat Adrian properly. They loaded him in, and Elena climbed in after him despite her exhaustion. "I've got this," the doctor said. Older man, competent hands already assessing damage. "You should rest." "I'm staying." Elena's voice left no room for argument. "I've kept him alive this long. I'm not stopping now." The doctor looked at her soaked clothes and bloody hands and eyes that had seen too much, and nodded. "All right, but you follow my lead. This is major trauma, and I need to concentrate." They worked together through the pre-dawn hours. The doctor, Park. Elena learned, set Adrian's leg properly, treated his internal injuries, addressed the burns and lacerations with skill born from years of practice. Elena assisted, following orders, using her training to support rather than lead. By the time the sun rose properly, Adrian was stable. Still unconscious, still badly hurt, but the immediate danger had passed. He'd live. Elena collapsed into a chair in the corner and let her eyes close. Just for a moment, just to rest. She woke to sunlight streaming through windows and the smell of coffee. The medical van was parked now. She recognized the safe house from yesterday. No, 2 days ago. Time had become slippery. Sarah sat in the chair next to her, holding out a steaming mug. "Drink. You look like death warmed over." Elena took the coffee gratefully. "You're really alive." "Takes more than a few Russian thugs to kill me. I've been cooking for the Vale family for 30 years. I've survived 3 attempts on my life, 2 building explosions, and 1 very unfortunate incident with a meat grinder." Sarah's expression softened slightly. "The vest was Adrian's idea. Made me start wearing it when things got hot. Saved my life last night." "How many made it out, total?" 23 of the 40 who were in the mountain when it fell. The rest..." Sarah's voice went quiet. "The rest died heroes. Every single one of them." Elena sipped the coffee, letting the heat seep into her bones. "What happens now?" "Now we rebuild. Slowly. Carefully." Sarah gestured around the safe house. "This is just a staging point. Adrian's got resources scattered across 3 states, people loyal to him in places Kozlov will never think to look. We go dark for a while, let things cool down, then we come back stronger." "And Kozlov?" Sarah's smile was sharp. "The warehouse fire last night? Officially an accident, but Kozlov lost 20 men, a major weapons shipment, and control of the port in 1 night. Word's already spreading. The Vale organization isn't dead. We hit back hard. We rescued our own." She leaned forward. "That matters in our world, Doc. Loyalty. Taking care of your people. Adrian showed everyone that even beaten and captured, his people would come for him. That's worth more than any territory." "So we won?" "We survived. That's winning enough for now." Sarah stood slowly. "He's been asking for you, the boss. Woke up about an hour ago." Elena's heart jumped. "He's conscious?" "Barely. Dr. Park gave him enough painkillers to knock out a horse, but he fought through them to make sure you were okay." Sarah's expression was knowing. "You should go talk to him before he wears himself out." Elena found Adrian in the back bedroom, propped against pillows, his face a landscape of bruises. But his eyes were clear when they found her, and his smile, though pained, was real. "You jumped," he said. His voice was rough, damaged from screaming, or worse. "Into the bay. You actually jumped." You would have done the same for me. Elena sat on the edge of the bed carefully, mindful of his injuries. How are you feeling? Like I got beaten, burned, and dropped 30 feet into freezing water. Adrian's hand found hers, but alive. Because of you, again. Because of all of us. Marcus, the fighters, Sarah. Because you wouldn't give up. His grip tightened. Marcus told me. You ran into that warehouse when everyone else was falling back. You risked everything to get to me. Of course I did. Why? The same question he'd asked before jumping. The same impossible question with the same simple answer. Because I love you, Elena said. The words hung in the air between them, vast and terrifying and absolutely true. She'd known it running through smoke and gunfire, had known it holding his hand in the freezing water, had known it every moment since opening that door 3 days ago to let a bleeding stranger into her life. Adrian stared at her like she'd said something in a language he didn't speak. You... What? I love you. Easier the second time. I know it's crazy. I know we barely know each other. I know you're a criminal, and I'm a doctor, and this makes no sense by any rational measure. But I do. I love you. Elena, you don't have to say it back. You don't have to feel the same way. I just needed you to know, needed you to understand why I couldn't leave you in that warehouse. Why I'll never leave you. She smiled through tears she didn't remember starting to cry. You're stuck with me now. Deal with it. Adrian pulled her down to him, ignoring the pain it must have caused, and kissed her. It was soft and desperate and tasted like blood and medicine and impossible futures. When they broke apart, he rested his forehead against hers. I love you too. Have since you stitched me up with veterinary supplies and told me to hold still. Maybe before that. Maybe the second you opened the door. His laugh was broken. I'm a criminal. I've hurt people. I'll probably hurt more before this is over. You deserve better than me. I don't want better. I want you. Elena cupped his battered face gently. All of you. The good, the bad, the violence you can't escape. I choose it. I choose you. Then I choose you back. Adrian's voice was fierce despite his weakness. And I'm going to give you a real choice, Elena. Not just right now, not just in this moment, but always. You can walk away any time. I'll give you money, protection, a new life anywhere you want it. No pressure, no obligation, just choice. I'm staying. You say that now, I'll say it tomorrow, and next week, and next month. Elena kissed him softly. I opened the door, Adrian. I let you in, and I'm keeping it open, for as long as you want to stay. He pulled her down beside him on the bed, careful of both their injuries, and held her like she might disappear. What kind of life can I give you, running from safe house to safe house, always looking over our shoulders, never knowing when the next war starts? We'll figure it out. Together. Elena settled against his chest, listening to his heartbeat, strong, steady, alive. And maybe we build something different. You said you wanted to go legitimate eventually. Maybe this is when you start. Just walk away from the empire my father built, from everything I've fought to protect. Walk towards something better. You've got resources, connections, intelligence. Put them to use building businesses instead of criminal operations. It won't be easy. It won't be fast. But it's possible. Elena looked up at him. If you want it. Adrian was quiet for a long moment, his hand stroking her hair absently. My father would have called that weakness, called it surrender. Your father built a fortress in a mountain and lived in fear until his heart gave out. Is that really the legacy you want? No. Adrian's voice was certain. No, it's not. Then change it. Be something different. Be someone who built an empire and then had the strength to walk away from it. Elena's hand found his. I'll help, however I can. You're serious? Completely. She smiled against his chest. I gave up my clinic, my truck, my quiet life for you. Might as well go all in. Adrian laughed, and this time it sounded real, hopeful. All right, we'll do it. But it'll take time. Years, probably. Dismantling an empire isn't quick work. I've got time. Elena kissed his chest just above his heart. We've got time. They lay together in the sunlight streaming through the safe house windows, And Elena let herself imagine the future. Not the next firefight or the next safe house or the next escape, but months from now, years from now, a life built on choice instead of circumstance. A knock at the door made them both tense, but it was just Marcus, his arm in a proper sling now, looking better than he had any right to. "Sorry to interrupt," he said, not looking sorry at all. "But we've got news. Kozlov's putting out feelers about a truce." Adrian sat up slowly, ignoring Elena's protest. "What kind of truce?" "The permanent kind. He lost too much at the port. His people are questioning his leadership. He wants to negotiate terms, split the territories, end the war, go back to separate operations." Marcus's expression was carefully neutral. Could be a trap. Could be genuine. Adrian was thinking Elena could see the calculation in his eyes. "What are his terms?" "He keeps the port and everything south. We keep the northern districts and the industrial zone. No cross-border operations. Peace treaty enforced by the other families." Marcus paused. "And he wants to meet in person to finalize it. You and him. Neutral ground." "Absolutely not," Elena said immediately. "You can't trust him. He'll kill you the second he gets the chance." "Maybe. Probably." Adrian looked at her, and she saw the weariness in his eyes. "But this war has cost too much already. If there's even a chance at real peace, at what cost? Your life. Better than watching more of my people die." He turned back to Marcus. "Set it up, but I want full security. Our people covering every approach, snipers on the rooftops, the works, and I want you there, ready to take over if this goes wrong." "Boss, that's an order, Marcus. You've earned the right to lead if I fall." Adrian's voice was steady. "And you'll take care of Elena. Make sure she gets out. Make sure she's protected." "Don't talk like this is suicide," Elena said. "It might be." Adrian cupped her face. "But if Kozlov's serious, if we can end this without more bloodshed, I have to try. You understand that, don't you?" Elena wanted to argue, wanted to forbid it, to find some way to keep him safe. But she saw the determination in his eyes and recognized it. This was who he was, someone who took responsibility for his people, who put their safety above his own. It was one of the reasons she loved him. "When?" she asked quietly. "Tomorrow night. Neutral territory. The old cathedral on Morrison Street. Public enough that Kozlov can't easily disappear me, private enough for real negotiation." Adrian's hand tightened on hers. "I'll be careful. I promise." The next day crawled past with agonizing slowness. Adrian spent it planning with Marcus and his remaining lieutenants, mapping out every contingency, every possible betrayal. Elena spent it in the medical bay, preparing supplies, sterilizing instruments, preparing for the worst while hoping for the best. Sarah found her there as evening approached. "You should eat something." "Not hungry." "Eat anyway. You're no good to anyone if you collapse from exhaustion and malnutrition." Sarah set down a plate. "He's going to be fine, you know. Adrian survived worse than a meeting with Kozlov." "Has he?" "Because I've watched him get shot, beaten, and nearly killed 3 times in as many days." Elena's voice cracked. "How much survival can one person manage before their luck runs out?" "As much as they need to." Sarah sat beside her. "You love him." It wasn't a question, but Elena answered anyway. "Yes." "Good. He needs someone who loves him for who he is, not what he can do for them. His father never understood that. Saw Adrian as a tool, a weapon to be deployed. But you," Sarah smiled slightly, "you see the man underneath all the violence. Is there a man underneath, or is the violence all there is? You tell me. You're the one who spent the last 3 days with him." Elena thought about Adrian cooking breakfast in the mountain fortress, about the way he touched her face like she was something precious, about him surrendering to save his people, about the grief in his voice when he'd talked about losing Victoria and the others. "There's a man," she said softly, "a good one, buried under years of doing what he thought he had to do. And I think he wants to be something different, be someone better. Then help him be that." Sarah stood. "He's leaving in an hour. You should see him before he goes." Elena found Adrian in the armory, checking weapons with mechanical precision. He'd showered, shaved, dressed in clean clothes that fit properly. Without the blood and bruises dominating, she could see the man he'd been before all of this. Successful, controlled, dangerous in a refined way. You look like you're going to a business meeting, she said. I am. Just one where everyone's armed and there's a good chance of someone dying. Adrian holstered a pistol and turned to face her. How do I look? Terrified. He laughed shortly. That obvious? To me. Elena crossed to him and straightened his collar even though it didn't need straightening. You don't have to do this. We could run. Disappear. Start over somewhere Kozlov will never find us. We could. His hands found her waist. But then I'd be running forever, looking over my shoulder, waiting for him to catch up. That's not a life. That's just a slower death. And this isn't? This is a chance at real peace. A chance to end the war, protect my people, and maybe, just maybe, build something different with you. He kissed her forehead. Worth the risk. Elena wanted to argue more, but she heard the certainty in his voice. He'd made his choice. Now all she could do was support it. Come back to me, she whispered. Always. Adrian held her close, and for a moment they were just two people who'd found each other in the chaos, trying to build something real from the ruins. I promise. He left with Marcus and 4 fighters, all armed, all alert. Elena watched the van disappear and then did the only thing she could do. She waited. An hour passed. Then 2. The safe house felt like a tomb, everyone moving quietly, speaking in whispers. Sarah made tea that no one drank. Dr. Park checked supplies that didn't need checking. They were all just marking time, waiting for word. Elena's phone buzzed. Unknown number, Cathedral. Now, he needs you. She was moving before conscious thought, grabbing her medical kit, heading for the door. Sarah tried to stop her, but Elena shook her off. I have to go. He needs me. It could be a trap. I don't care. Elena met the older woman's eyes. I'm not losing him now. Not when we're this close to having a real future. She took one of the backup vehicles, an older sedan, nondescript, and drove through the city with her heart in her throat. The cathedral loomed on Morrison Street, Gothic and imposing, its stained glass windows dark. No lights, no movement visible from outside. Elena parked 2 blocks away and approached on foot, her medical kit clutched tight. The cathedral's main doors stood open, and she slipped inside. Silence greeted her. Absolute, profound silence, the kind that came after violence. She found them in the main chapel. Adrian sat slumped against the altar, blood spreading across his shirt. Not his blood, she realized with shock, but someone else's. Viktor Kozlov lay 10 feet away, very dead, 3 bullet wounds in his chest. Marcus and the fighters stood in a defensive circle, weapons ready, and surrounding them were at least 20 men. Kozlov's organization, Elena realized, all armed, all with weapons trained on Adrian's people. Elena, get out of here! Adrian's voice was sharp. This isn't your doctor? A man stepped forward from Kozlov's crew. Late 50s, gray hair, expensive suit. The one who started all this by saving your life? Leave her out of this, Adrian said. She's part of everything. The man studied Elena with cold eyes. Victor told us about her before he died. Said she was your weakness. The thing that would make you vulnerable. Dmitri. Shut up. Dmitri's gun tracked to Adrian. Victor's dead because he underestimated you. Because he thought this meeting would be easy. But you came ready for war. He gestured at Kozlov's body. My boss is dead, which means I'm in charge now. And I have a choice to make. The cathedral held its breath. I can kill you, Dmitri continued. Take revenge for Victor. Continue this war until both our organizations bleed out. Or, he lowered his gun fractionally, or I can recognize that Victor's obsession with destroying you cost us everything. The port, our weapons, good men, all because he couldn't let go of a grudge. What are you saying? Adrian asked carefully. I'm saying Victor was a fool, and I'm not. Dmitri holstered his weapon, and slowly his men did the same. The truce he offered, I'm honoring it, not because I like you, not because I forgive what you did tonight, but because continuing this war serves no one except the Undertakers. Adrian stared at him. You're serious. Dead serious. You keep the North, we keep the South. No crossover, no conflicts. We coexist like civilized criminals instead of animals tearing each other apart. Dmitri's eyes were hard. But make no mistake, if you break this treaty, if you come for us, I will burn your entire world to the ground, starting with her. His gaze settled on Elena, and she felt the weight of the threat. Understood, Adrian said quietly. The treaty holds. Good. Dmitri signaled his men. They collected Kozlov's body with efficient precision, cleaning up the blood, erasing evidence. Within 5 minutes, it was like the violence had never happened. Dmitri paused at the cathedral entrance. Your father would have kept fighting, would have seen peace as weakness. But I think you're smarter than Thomas Vale. I think you understand that survival sometimes means knowing when to stop. Then he was gone, and they were alone in the cathedral's vast silence. Elena ran to Adrian, checking him for injuries even though she could see the blood wasn't his. Are you hurt? Did he? I'm fine. Kozlov pulled a gun during negotiations. I was faster. Adrian's voice was flat, emotionless, processing. It's over. The war's over. Marcus sagged against a pew. Just like that. We're at peace. For now. Adrian stood slowly, pulling Elena up with him. But Dmitri meant what he said. We honor the treaty or we all die. So we honor it. Elena looked at him searchingly. And we build something better, together, like we talked about. Adrian nodded slowly. Together. They left the cathedral and drove back to the safe house in silence. When they arrived, Sarah took one look at Adrian's face and started making real food. Marcus called the scattered survivors, spreading word that the war had ended, that they'd won by surviving. Over the next weeks, Adrian began the slow process of transitioning from crime lord to legitimate businessman. He sold off the criminal operations to allies, invested the money in legal ventures, used his network to build something that didn't require violence. It wasn't fast. It wasn't easy. But it was possible. Elena helped however she could, using her medical knowledge to establish a free clinic in the Northern District, bringing legitimate healthcare to communities that had never had it. Adrian funded it completely, no strings attached. His way of giving back, he said, his way of balancing the scales. 3 months after the cathedral, they stood in the ruins of Elena's old clinic. The valley had rebuilt in their absence, but the burned-out shell of the building remained, a reminder of where everything had started. We could rebuild it, Adrian said. Better than before. State-of-the-art equipment, real funding, make it what you always dreamed it could be. Elena Svos looked at the charred walls and remembered the stranger bleeding on her floor, remembered the choice that had changed everything. No, she said. Let it stay. A reminder of what happens when you open the door to something dangerous, something that changes everything. Regrets? Not one. She took his hand. You? Adrian pulled her close and kissed her. Not one. 6 months later, they made it official. Not a big wedding, just Marcus and Sarah and a handful of survivors who'd become family. They exchanged vows in the clinic Elena had built in the Northern District, surrounded by the community they served. It wasn't a fairy tale. They still had enemies. Still looked over their shoulders sometimes. The past didn't just disappear because you wanted it to. But they had each other, had chosen each other with eyes wide open, knowing exactly what they were getting into. A year later, Elena stood in that same clinic, treating a gunshot wound on a teenager who'd been caught in crossfire. Different gangs now, different war, but the same senseless violence. She stitched him up with steady hands, gave him antibiotics, told him to stay out of trouble. Adrian waited outside, no longer the crime boss, but something different, something better. An investor, a philanthropist, a man building instead of destroying. The teenager left, and Elena washed her hands, watching pink water circle the drain. She thought about another night, another stranger bleeding on her floor, another choice that had seemed impossible. Long day? Adrian asked from the doorway. Long year. Elena turned to face him. But a good one. Yeah. He crossed to her and pulled her into his arms. Yeah, it was. They stood there in the clinic's fluorescent light, two people who'd found each other in chaos and built something real from the ruins. It wasn't perfect, would never be perfect. But it was theirs. Elena had opened the door that night not knowing what would come through it, and in doing so, she'd found not just a man worth saving, but a life worth living, a choice worth making, over and over again. Outside the clinic, the city moved on. Crimes were committed, lives were saved, the eternal dance of violence and healing continued. But inside, in this moment, There was only peace. The peace of knowing that sometimes the dangerous choice is the right one, that sometimes opening the door changes everything, and that sometimes love is worth fighting for, bleeding for, surviving for. Elena kissed Adrian and felt him smile against her lips. "Ready to go home?" he asked. Home. They'd built one together, a real one, with walls that weren't made of stone and secrets that weren't built on blood. A place where they could just be two people who'd found each other and refused to let go. "Yeah," Elena said. "Let's go home." They walked out of the clinic together, hand in hand, into a future they'd chosen freely, into a life built on impossible choices and unwavering loyalty and love that had survived fire and blood and war. Because that night, when Elena heard pounding on her door and made the choice to open it, she didn't just save a stranger's life. She opened the door to everything. And this time, she chose to stay.